Muted.
God damn it, dude. Things are going great. Things are just going really well. I'm muting myself. We're back. We'll see how round 2 goes. Let me update some comments here. Benny said his points go directly against the current and previous popes. How can he claim Catholicism? Fair point. Amanda says, welcome back, Peepaw. And there's Johnny. I don't know what. Oh, there's that. How did Johnny's emojis change? That was weird. And 4 months, Purple Kitty Kelly. Thank you. Nothing could stop Team RTP, except for the internet and computers and electronics in general. Outside of anything with a button, I am unstoppable. But put a button if it plugs in and has buttons, I'm absolutely fucked. As you guys are rolling back in, sorry about that. I switched the IP. We'll see what happens. Thanks, brother Bob. Give RTP one day off and things crumble. That's true. Thank you, RGZ Mom and Ozma. Well, 6 months subscribed on Prime. Make sure, that's a good thing to remind you. If you have Amazon Prime and you're not using your Amazon Prime free membership over on Twitch, head over to Twitch. You can use a free membership over there to subscribe to us. And then Jeff Bezos gets to pay our bills, which is terrific. And I knew it. I fucking knew it, Last Cranberry. I knew that's where you were going. I absolutely knew that's what I said it when I was like, if it has a button. Yeah. Bree, I'm about to come fix your damn internet. I don't know if it's the internet. I was still playing the videos. I went on for about 3 or 4 minutes before realizing that the stream had disconnected. I was playing a video. Then Jen called me. And I was like, oh, Jen's calling. And Jen called me and was like, hey, dude, the live's down. Nobody can hear you. And also she couldn't hear me. So I talked to myself for a few minutes while that went down. But let's get back into Mehdi Hassan and the white nationalists. This guy, this is Pink Shirt. I don't know what this dude was on. Maybe just Adderall. I'm not sure. This is the most jittery human I've ever seen. I think he was giving off like. Have you seen that video of Hitler at the Olympics just like tweaking? He was giving that off. It stopped where he asked his name. That was the end of the clip, anyways, Amy Lynn. So that's perfect. That right at the end of the clip, he says, "My name's Connor," and that was the end of what I had clipped here. Maybe Meth. I don't know. This dude is a psychopath. If I were Jubilee, and knowing some of the people I know at Jubilee, some of them better than others, I can imagine that this dude is not going to be invited back, simply because he gives off the type of vibes of I'm about to snap. Here's Mehdi with the craziest person on the panel, Pink Shirt. I think he had to turn his hat around backwards because it has a logo on it. You're not allowed to like have logos when you record on Jubilee. So a lot of people were talking about his hat, or maybe he's just cool. I don't know. Look, Jubilee does want this, and it does get clicks, but I will defend Jubilee on this. Like, we can't pretend that there aren't a lot of these people. And this type of pushback done in the right way, like Mehdi Hassan does, exposes their ideas as completely fraudulent. It exposes their logic as completely fraudulent. I don't know. Like I think going in and debating white nationalists, I think that there's some merit to it if it's going to be seen by a lot of people. I think that there's merit to this. I don't disagree with Jubilee doing this. We have a white nationalist problem, and pretending it doesn't exist and hiding them under a blanket or it doesn't seem to fix the problem. Because we did that. We did that with Nick Fuentes for like 5 years, 10 years, I guess. At this point, Jesus Christ, it's been 10 years. At first, we just banned him off of everything. He just got me banned off Twitter, banned off YouTube, banned off Twitch. But his audience followed him, and they followed him to places where there's no pushback. Same with Andrew Wilson. Now, Andrew's a little different because he goes out there and debates. But when he's actually putting out the ideology, like it goes unchecked, I think this kind of stuff needs to be checked. I don't think letting it fester works because for everybody that's right here in this circle, these are mouthpieces. These are people who are willing to probably travel to LA if they're not there. By the way, Jubilee doesn't pay for your travel most of the time. Like if you're just a panel, like if you're in a smaller group, one of their smaller groups, or if you are Mehdi Hassan, they'll pay for your travel. If you have a large enough following where they think it's worth it for them to get clicks, they'll pay for your travel. But I don't know any of these people, and I know like most of the alt-right big creators, so I don't think any of these people were paid. So they're traveling to put this out there. If they're traveling to put this out there, this isn't like your average conservative. But there are average conservatives who hear them normally when they're not getting pushback, when they're not frazzled, and they're far more coherent. and they're far more convincing with their points when there's no pushback. And so I just think that we're at a stage in this country right now. We have to be very fucking aware of this. We have to be very, very fucking aware that this is a not insignificant portion of our population who believes this way, and they are growing. This population of white nationalists is growing. At least online, they're growing. I don't know like the demographics on the streets, but online they're growing. And at times they can be convincing to the uninitiated. Some of their arguments can seem reasonable. So I think it's good that Jubilee's doing this. Some of you may disagree, but that's just my opinion.
Let me ask you a question. If you got rid of all immigrants coming in tomorrow, moratorium, you think that Republicans and employers of big firms just suddenly raise all the wages?
You notice
That's
how you didn't answer what I said. You
That's
notice
what
how
you believe.
It was a complete. Your ankles
That's what
all
you
right.
believe.
You pivoted the hell away from the conversation.
Is that what you? I'm on the subject. Okay? Do you?
That's a pretty. That's just shitty trash talk. One thing I've noticed about white nationalists is they all suck at shit talking. They all think Charlie Kirk's like good at it. That doesn't make sense. Just anybody who's played sports, you don't hurt your ankle from pivoting. You hurt your ankle from switching directions, or like being crossed up. That's the insult there. Like you don't, when you pivot, your ankle stays flat and you just rotate around your ankle. That's not a lot of people hurt their ankle by pivoting. So that's just me being petty, but that's bad shit talk. He's just so already unraveled that he can't even get like his shit talk out.
Your ankles all right. You pivoted the hell away from the conversation.
Is that what you? I'm on the subject.
Okay?
Do you believe that wages? I'm just wondering how naive you are. You believe that the 1% will raise wages in the federal wage if we stop immigration?
They will be forced to. When you increase labor's relationship to capital, okay, and you give labor more bargaining power because you're tightening the supply of labor.
This is a very simplistic understanding of economics because you're.
Okay, explain I'm wrong.
I'm telling you how you're wrong. Because you're.
All right, let me just cover that because I keep hearing this all the time from white nationalists. Andrew kind of alluded to this too. They're using like supply side economics, and what they're saying is that if you get rid of immigrants, yes, we will lose jobs, but that's okay. But the jobs that we do have, because there will be more, there will be less labor, you will get paid more. Every year we have more. Every year we have more labor, right? And wages go up. Every year wages go up, and the amount of people in the labor pool increases. When COVID happened and labor went down, did all of you guys that had to work through COVID, did you all get raises? No. This doesn't. Supply and demand works when it's about like purchasing something. It doesn't work with wages. Wages aren't necessarily supply and demand. Like maybe your business operates on market principles like that, where it's supply and demand determines like how much money your business brings in. But like you've all worked at companies that had record profits and you didn't get a raise, or you had worked at a company that maybe didn't have record profits, but their profits went up and you don't get a raise. When the company does better, you usually don't make more money. When the company does worse, you usually get fired. That's how this works. This idea that like getting rid of all these people will just drive up wages, I don't think that there's any evidence to back that up. Mehdi Hassan takes a different approach in this argument, which I like, but I do think that this is an important principle to point out to these idiots, that like getting rid of immigrants, there's no evidence that will drive up wages. None. In fact, mostly what it's going to do is increase foreign reliance on especially like agriculture.
Because
okay, explain I'm wrong.
I'm telling you how you're wrong. Because you're ignoring the fact that when immigrants come into an area, they spend money. They create jobs through their presence.
About 1/5 of their monthly income leaves the country.
That's a good thing also because you don't like US aid, foreign aid. So this is the
that's good by Mehdi there.
Point. They create jobs. I came into this country. So far, every one of my assumptions about you has been correct. But listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like. I should get the hell out.
Yes.
Why?
I don't want you here.
Why?
Because you come here and say all this bullshit
Why?
about how Americans are lazy.
Why?
You push your left-wing
politics. I never said Americans are lazy.
I don't know why you say this.
I never said Americans are lazy.
Yes, you are.
You're
saying immigrants have to come into this country so they can do jobs that we don't want to do. That's exactly what you said.
When did I say it?
Oh, really?
When did I say it? We're on YouTube. Guys watching on YouTube, rewind to the time where I said immigrants are doing jobs we don't want to do. When did I say those words?
You see it when he's trying to calm himself there. This is white rage. This is what they teach. This is what these Andrew Wilsons are doing. This is why every time we debate somebody that's on the right and you get them stuck in a position where they can't defend it anymore, like you're all on TikTok. What happens at this point on TikTok? Drops a slur, right? And he gets banned. That's all this is. These people are so indoctrinated and they live in such an echo chamber that when you take them out of the echo chamber, the rage comes out because that's all they were really feeling the whole time. These folks are not convinced by good arguments. They're convinced by emotional arguments. They're convinced by showing you videos of brown people committing crimes. They're convinced by showing videos of people cutting through the fence and coming across the border. They're convinced by like caravans of military-aged men. They're convinced by tattoos. They're convinced by discussion about gang membership. But the reality is, it was the emotion that convinced them, not statistics. Because statistically speaking, like, this is a good thing for us. That was the whole point I was trying to have with Andrew. This is why Andrew didn't want to have this discussion with me. Because these folks, their entire argument relies on two things. One, that everybody's ideologically driven, which is fucking stupid and untrue. Some people are ideologically driven. Others have views that evolve by the situation. Which I think is a great thing. Like, I think situationally you can have different views on different things. The other part that it has to do with is, like, you have to play to emotion. You have to make them feel like victims, and you have to consistently show them every day that they are victims, and that the people that are victimizing them are people that like, you can view, like, and say, like, oh, that person's my enemy, that person is not. And the only optics you can really rely on is, like, does that person have the same skin color as the person in this video? Sure. That's how you get to this point where you're screaming at Mehdi Hassan to get the fuck out of this country. And then when you ask why, he's like, because you said that Americans are lazy, and I just don't want you. He didn't say that. He's just repeating shit he's heard before. Remember in that debate with, I'm sorry I referenced this debate with Andrew because it's the only, like, well-spoken Nazi I've ever debated. But if you remember my opening statement, and then you can go and watch his opening statement, he didn't respond to my opening statement. He responded to things that he has heard people say before on the left that, like, were flawed. And he made up entirely new arguments that he claimed I was making, which I wasn't. I was careful with my opening argument on purpose because I knew where he would go with it. And he just immediately is like, fuck. All right, I'm going to take what you say. Here's what RTP really meant. Here's what he said. Here's what he really meant. Because he has to frame me in an ideological world with flawed ideologies so that he can show that his flawed ideology is the same. And so what do? We just all have flawed ideologies. One of them's going to win. That's how he falls back down into force principle. And that's what these folks all believe. They believe that eventually it's just going to come down to who has more power, who has more force, and they're going to force their will on others. That's what the first guy said. Like, I want an autocracy. How do we decide who an autocracy is? I don't know. I mean, we could vote, or just, like, whoever gets the most power. That's what they want. And the saddest part, I think, maybe of all of it is that, like, at the end of that, they don't benefit. At the end of that, all these fears that they had of people who are a threat to them, those people are gone. But guess what? Now you have new threats. And those new threats look exactly like you. The threats never go away. There's no country that's, like, done like, ever. There's nobody who's said, like, we're going to do an ethnostate, and then that ethnostate was completely peaceful. It's peaceful at first. Like, I grew up in a state that, like, and I live in a state. Both of my states were kind of set up or intended to be ethnostates. That's what Utah was. Utah was an ethnostate, and it was an autocracy. You had the Mormon beliefs, and we didn't allow people of color. We didn't want any people. In fact, it was a sin that if you that Brigham Young, I think, once said that if a white person has sex with a black person, that is a crime punishable by death. Right. So I grew up in a state that was supposed to be an ethnostate, and guess what happened to that state? It's very divided. It's incredibly divided. The U.S. government came to take over that state. It's not like Utah was, like, all peace all the time. There have been problems there forever, and they're getting worse because eventually the people in the ethnostate start eating each other. Eventually they find a way to divide against each other. So then you're going to have someone be like, you know, well, we're talking about Catholicism. Maybe it's only people of Roman descent. You know, we don't like Scandinavians. We don't like the Protestants. Get out of here. Get out of here, Portugal. Fuck you. Get out of here, Sweden. Fuck you. There's never an end to, like, to this type of ideology because it relies wholly on you blaming everybody but yourself for the problems that you're facing.
Out of my mouth.
Okay, so why do we have to bring in immigrants? Why do we have to bring in immigrants to the country if we have people who are going to do the jobs?
Pause. You've been voted out.
It's nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
You're gonna have to go, bro.
Nice talking to you.
You're gonna have to go, bro.
You're gonna have to go, bro, is what he said as I left to an American citizen.
Yeah. Shout out to the Shout out in here to the people talking about Malcolm X. I like that quote by Malcolm X. I will say that politically, things were a little bit different with the Democrats when Malcolm X made that quote. But I agree. I think you should never trust a politician. For during the civil rights movement, I can understand that. I was warned during my days as a Mormon that the people who deceive you are the people who's at least outwardly who mimic what you say. Those are the people that are most likely to deceive you. Like, if you're a conservative here, I'm probably not going to deceive you. You come in not believing anything I say from the start. It's really fucking hard for me to make a compelling enough argument for somebody who ideologically is on the other side. It's very difficult for me to sway you. There's been a few, but overall, like, I'm not going to sway you. Who will sway you? Somebody on your side. Somebody will make a more compelling argument, and it kind of like, it's not way different than your views. It's just slightly different. That's the person who's going to lead you into a different place. So that quote by Malcolm X actually makes sense to me. Like, the people marching during the civil rights movement, the white people marching. Yeah, like you also need to be a little worried about that, because what's going to happen when they start getting thrown in jail? Will they turn on you? I think a lot of people did. Will they use you as a way to get votes? Have there historically been like white politicians going into black neighborhoods and promising them the world to get votes and then turning their back on them? Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's actually really good advice by Malcolm X. I'm a fan of Malcolm X. I think everybody should take that advice. If you are a white Christian conservative, you should be wary of white Christian conservatives. You should wonder why these white Christian conservatives are like, we're with Israel. Like, Israel's just doing a genocide. We're like I think that it's now a stage 5 I don't know, starvation is not the right word, but they're starving the people. We're like this stage 5 at this point. Jewish Holocaust Israeli Holocaust experts are saying this is a genocide. And yet we still have a bunch of people standing around like, no, it's not a genocide. We've been led down this road already. We consistently get led by the people who look and talk like us to do bad things. Those are the ones you should be most worried about. If you are on the opposite side of the aisle from me, like, I'm not your threat. The biggest threat to you is somebody taking your views and manipulating you to support things that don't benefit you, which would probably be why conservatives for the last 50 years have said, like, let's keep cutting taxes for rich people. That's going to do it. This time it'll work. All we see is just wealth inequality skyrocketing. And yet those rich people get up there. Like, the richest people in the world all gave Donald Trump money. Like, the richest people in our country, when Trump won, they just all gave him a bunch of money. And some of them, Elon, gave him more money than any single person in an election ever. And you're like, yeah, but this billionaire, he's for us. Sure, he's for you. All right, let's keep going with Mehdi Hassan here. This lady was... I appreciated her. She's holding on for dear life. Mehdi gets her. Sorry about the video here. I couldn't find the original.
Or immigrants in this claim.
Immigrants are Americans. I'm an immigrant and an American.
Well, immigrants are not Americans. Americans are the people that were born
14th
here.
Amendment. Have you read it?
Okay, yes, I have.
Citizenship clause. It says any persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States.
I'm aware of that.
There's about 40 to 50 million naturalized Americans in this country.
Yes, but
you didn't seem aware of it because you said Americans versus immigrants.
So, but are you understanding?
They're showers, not growers. That's the problem.
That the process of getting all these immigrants that come in here we've been also the millions of immigrants, it's up to the millions, it's the last 20 years now, and it has dramatically affected Americans here in the country, which
positively, I would argue.
People like me and everyone around here, we cannot find homes or even get jobs within our own fields.
Are you looking for a job in construction or agriculture?
No, I went to college.
Okay. Employment is at a record low right now, even under Donald Trump. And I'm not a Donald Trump fan, but I would say unemployment under both Biden and Trump has been at record low levels.
Okay, is this in regards for American citizens?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm unaware of that statistic, but from what I see, from what I can
I'm an immigrant and an American.
This is such a perfect example of like people being facts, not feelings. Crime is at historic lows. Unemployment is at historic lows. These things that they're claiming, like they're coming here and they're taking our jobs and they're bringing crime. Explain why crime's at historic low. We have historic highs in immigration and historic lows in crime. Just explain that. That's a tough thing to explain. But they're just driven. She's been shown the videos of Laken Riley and the people talking about Laken Riley over and over and over again. But it's just not true. Statistically, it's not true.
American, and I employ many American citizens, both naturalized and the ones born here. I employ Americans.
My parents came
Americans as defined by you.
My parents came as immigrants and became naturalized, so I'm not necessarily opposed to immigrants.
So you're the child of immigrants.
Correct. I'm a child of immigrants. I was born
But you don't
here.
accept that immigrants are Americans.
Not at this moment.
So your parents are not Americans.
Not at this moment.
So hold
no,
on, your parents are
they're
not Americans.
citizens. They became naturalized.
You just said you can't be citizens by being naturalized.
No, I was born here, and I'm not opposed
you're born
to
here,
naturalization.
Right?
I never said that I'm against naturalization.
Are you against naturalization?
No, I never said I was against
you
naturalization.
You did. You began. Everyone was here. They can play it back on YouTube. You said Americans or immigrants. Are your parents Americans or immigrants?
No, my parents are United States citizens.
But they're immigrants, you said.
No, they came here as immigrants. However, but
so they
I want
are
to make the
immigrants.
claim that we cannot
I came here as an immigrant. I'm an immigrant.
But at this point, when they came, the United
people
States
aren't happy
economy,
with the way this is going for you.
The United States economy was not at
the reason the economy is doing badly now is because Donald Trump's tariff policy. Nothing to do with migrants. In fact, the congressional.
They can't even start businesses.
I'm an immigrant. I started a business.
I understand because the SBA is giving people billions of loans.
I didn't take any loans. They're giving them billions. I didn't take any loans.
It's so crazy to watch her in real. Like people do this in real time. Like they're starting business. Oh, it's because the SBA is giving billions of loans. No. By the way, those SBA loans that were given during COVID, like those have to be repaid with interest. It's not free money. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with the SBA giving out loans? We've been giving out loans through the SBA forever. That's a revenue maker for our country. Why not? Why not give out SBA loans?
I'm saying you did, but I'm saying that statistically speaking, they're giving billions of loans.
So should we do statistics? Right, immigrants are more likely to pay in taxes than
and also you have to be a citizen to get an SBA loan.
Take out in benefits. They're more likely to add to innovation and jobs and wages. This is what the statistics show. The Congressional Budget Office. Let me just finish my point and then let you come back in. The Congressional Budget Office, which is bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats both use it. They have said that the immigration surge that you mentioned will lead to an extra $9 trillion of GDP over the next 10 years. That amounts to $65,000 per American household. That's $65,000 for each and every one of you holding up a red flag.
Okay, I understand
that. All right,
but
pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please.
Do you see Pink Hat back there just shaking it? I'll do more of these tomorrow. I want to get to the main part of the show today, or we'll come back to it. I want to get to that. Let me read a couple of comments first before we go. And then just a reminder, like, Jen's going to bug the shit out of you guys in the chat today because I am going to get really deep in what I'm covering, and I'm going to get on one of my like ADHD rolls, and I'm going to forget to do announcements. So if you could help us knock out this goal throughout the day, that would be wonderful. I'm going to forget to announce it, so let's do our best. Jackie said, I'll be on my best behavior, I promise. Thank you, Jackie. And then I'll update that here. I'll update it right now. Let me do this. That was right. Pretty sure that's right. If that's wrong, I apologize. You guys could add that up. All right. Originals under Jubilee on YouTube. That's right, Lisa. If you guys want to watch that, Jubilee, hopefully they don't copyright strike us. They may. I don't know how serious they are about that. I know when I was on Jubilee, we weren't allowed to show it for like a month. All right. The reason that I got into the story today starts with a text message I got from my friend on Friday. And he said he's been a big fan of Tulsi, as was I. He's politically moderate, but closer to the right. And he texts me like, what do you think about this Tulsi Gabbard thing? Like, this seems like this could really fuck the Democrats if Obama gets arrested. I was like, oh no. Oh no. And I didn't know what he was talking about. So I had to go look, and I found Tulsi's post, and then she did an interview on Fox News. But this is what kicked off today's deep dive.
There's no question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people. So yes, next week we will be releasing more detailed information about how exactly this took place and the extent to which this information was sought to be hidden from the American people, hidden from officials who would be in a position to do something about it. And that's really the point here that I think is most important, Maria, and you said it in your opening. Accountability is essential for the future of our country, for the American people to have any sense of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. Accountability, action, prosecution, indictments for those who are responsible for trying to steal our democracy is essential for us to make sure that this never happens to our country again.
All right. So what she's talking about is Obama, while he was president and then Trump won, there were a bunch of people, including James Comey, that had come to him and said, look, there's a lot of Russian involvement. Now, our government was already investigating Russian involvement. They're constantly, Iran it interferes in our elections. China interferes in our elections. We do it to theirs too. So it's not like an unusual thing that people were interfering. What was unusual, and the reason that Obama said we need to have an investigation, is that a lot of these people tended to work with Trump. They were working on his campaign. And these were people that were being floated as cabinet members. And so for the first time in American history, the people that were actively working with a foreign entity were also actively working with a presidential candidate. So that's why Obama chose to do this investigation. But here's what she's talking about. Here's the graphic. And by the way, she said she was going to release all this shit. Like, I don't know what she's releasing. I thought that I was going to go through all these documents that she was releasing that we had never seen before, and that I was going to have to go through and determine whether or not what she was saying is true. Everything she has put out, so we're clear, has absolutely already been released, and we've already seen it, and it's already been investigated by Republicans, and Republicans have concluded that there was no malice. So this is 100% an attempt to not talk about Epstein, which is working. We're not talking about Epstein, but instead of taking the bait here with Tulsi Gabbard and saying like, "Oh, we're gonna talk only about Obama. We're gonna get on there, and I'm gonna defend Obama." I don't give a fuck about Obama. I don't care to defend Obama. Instead, we're gonna talk about what the investigators found, not what Obama did, not that Obama called them to be investigators, but what did they find? So here's what she said. She said, this is the creation of the Russia hoax, which of course isn't a hoax. She said, Russia and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. This quote is from the IC report that Obama asked for. One of the IC reports. The quote here, and this is very important. Please, if you are going to check out later, this is the part you need to remember when you're debating. The quote that she is relying on says, Russia and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election and results by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. That is a qualifier at the end there. Nobody has ever concluded, not a single solitary report, including Trump's own administration, has ever concluded that Russia and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting cyber attacks. It's the last part that's important. It's the last part that they don't want to tell you for some reason. On infrastructure, meaning they didn't hack into the machines. That's it. Election infrastructure is talking about the actual infrastructure, the actual mechanisms by which people vote. That was the conclusion, but the rest of the conclusion was that they absolutely interfered and that they absolutely affected the outcome. Now, is it possible to determine whether or not they affected the outcome enough for Hillary to win? No. There's not enough evidence that says Hillary would have won. I don't even think you could come up with that evidence. I don't think that evidence is possible because it operates in kind of like this hypothetical realm where you have to say, okay, here you have to look at polling and you have to look at actions and you say, okay, Trump's polling was here and then this happened and then his polling went here, but are our polls accurate? Maybe these people were always going to vote for Trump. Maybe some of them were always going to vote for Trump. There's no way to like actually conclude whether or not it changed the outcome of the election. The only way that you could say whether or not it changed the outcome of the election is if that quote was not true. That they had found that Russians had conducted cyber attacks on the infrastructure and that they could change actual votes. That's the only way you could prove this. So that's her first quote. My initial reaction is like, yeah, duh. Everybody knows that. God talks about this secret meeting, this December 9th secret Russia meeting with James Comey and Clapper. Now, I've read Comey's book. Comey talks about this meeting in detail. Comey has testified about this meeting. Clapper has testified about this meeting. This is not a secret meeting. Everybody knows about this meeting. This is not new information. like I said, it's in his book. Then she says, then Obama officials use their media propaganda arm to spread fake news. And here's the example she's giving. Secret CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump win White House. That's true. That's what the reports found. That's what the Mueller report found, and that's what the Horowitz report found. From the New York Times, Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in election. U.S. says that is true. NBC News, U.S. officials, Putin personally involved in U.S. election hack. Maybe. I think there's good enough evidence to say that, but they're citing U.S. officials, and there are many U.S. officials inside of our intelligence apparatus who have said that Putin knew. And I'm going to show you evidence that he did know. Again, nobody's ever going to be able to prove, unless Putin wrote down the words, I knew that this was happening, or if they have Putin on a recorded call saying, I know this is happening. So in order for me to disprove that, I would have to have some concrete evidence that he knew it was happening. That's not reality. That's not reality in court cases. People get convicted all the time without admitting they did something. Circumstantial evidence, when piled up and when it corroborates with each other, that is enough to convict people. You do not have to have like a smoking gun in order to assume that Putin knew this. And then we have fake weaponized assessment, suppressed prior intelligence showing Russia lacked intent and capability to hack the 2016 election. Circled down here, Russia hoax. So this is her whole thing. Nobody has ever said that I'm aware of. I've never heard a member of Congress. I've never heard Mueller. I've never heard Horowitz. I've never heard any like credible journalists say that Russia hacked our infrastructure and changed votes for the election. Even Hillary Clinton didn't say that. The criticism of Hillary Clinton that she didn't accept the results of the election, it's not true. She conceded. She accepted the results, but she said it was illegitimate because Russia interfered, which is true. That did happen. Russia interfered, and I'm going to prove that unequivocally here. There's no doubt. At the end of this, I'm telling you, there will be no doubt in your mind that members of Trump's team and Donald Trump absolutely colluded with Russia, that they absolutely knew Russia was helping them, that they publicly acknowledged multiple times. Donald Trump publicly acknowledged that Russia was helping him, that Trump's own intelligence community has said, yes, Russia was helping, and yes, they were working with the Trump campaign. It is absolutely irrefutable that this happened, which is why Tulsi Gabbard can go fuck herself for this. This is a distraction meant to get people talking about arresting Obama. No charges will ever be filed against Obama. No charges will be fired against Comey or Clapper. If they do, no court is going to convict them. There is absolutely no evidence for any of this. And the fact that they even have to create this distraction by saying that like it was about the infrastructure shows you just how loose this is. I don't know who's got Tulsi Gabbard's reigns. I have no idea. I have no idea why she's willing to just like throw everything away for this lie. It's an obvious lie. And we'll jump right into it. Here's where I think we went wrong. This is Trump quoting himself here. But this is when I think we decided, you know what? Fuck it. We're all in on Trump. We don't care what happens.
And if you put me back in the White House, their reign is over. Their reign will be over. And they know it. And America will be a free nation once again. We're not a free nation right now. We don't have free press. We don't have free anything. In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today, I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Now, I would just be curious for the Republicans in here. He's your voice. He's doing this for you. How come we're talking only about him then? What is he doing for you? It seems like when he says, I'm doing this for you, and then he rehashes things that have been proven over and over again, that this may not be for you, but that's how they set the stage. Amy said she may be in trouble. She called it democracy instead of a republic. And also deeper, baby. Thank you. Before you let Trump tell you that this Russia stuff is a hoax, I want to show you this video, and this kind of sets the stage. Donald Trump loves to position himself as this incredible businessman who's uber successful, who sacrificed everything that he had built to come run the country, to save the country from sure ruin. It's not the case. Donald Trump's a dog shit businessman. Donald Trump was deeply in debt. And throughout this episode today, like, I'm going to show you that the only way he was saved from bankruptcy and losing everything he had was because he relied on Russians, and he allowed himself to be compromised. I'm also going to tell you this. I don't think Trump really knows how much he's been played by Russia. I want to start by saying Donald Trump's a fucking idiot. Donald Trump is dumb, and that's why Russia chose him, because he's easy to manipulate and he's not very intelligent. And that's why this story is what it is, and that's why it's so confusing, because I think a lot of people were like, we want to catch Trump. He and Putin were planning this together. Putin's using him. Putin has always used him. And it's not just Putin that's using him. It's Paul Manafort that's using him. It's Republicans who are using him. It's Israel who's using him. It's the deep state who's using him. It's the military industrial complex who's using him. He's easy to use. You just tell him how great he is, and you go out publicly and say he's such a great leader, and then he doesn't give a fuck what you do. And they all learned that. They all realized that early on, but Russia probably earlier than anyone. That's important. Just remember that part. Remember that he was asked publicly many times, have you done business with organized crime? I'm going to show you unequivocally that most of his business, most of the times his business was saved was through organized crime. And that when he says you don't want to owe them money, that means that you're owned by them. That's why you don't want to owe them money. And he owes the Russians billions of dollars.
Back of his oligarchs. And one way of keeping tabs is knowing.
One day, add a girl, whatever. Stay here for a second. You'll see. This isn't Dunning-Kruger. I did my research. Donald Trump is a fraud. Stick around. Get out of your feelings. If you're like a intelligent person and you want to get answers to things, stick around. At the end of the show today, you can tell me whether or not this is Dunning-Kruger and I don't know anything. But stick around and see.
Where their money is. Bayrock may well have been a way of doing that. To me, that's a turning point, because what we have here is a very serious intelligence operation, and it is in the belly of the beast. It is in the home of the man who becomes president of the United States.
All right, that's where I'm going to cut it, because now I'm going to give you the details because they're going to reference some stuff here that I don't think everybody knows, and I'm just going to go through it one by one. Here's Craig Unger. He wrote the book House.
So a lot of the
shit.
Goddamn.
He wrote the book House of Trump, or House of Putin, House of Trump, and I can't remember the other name of his book. Here is the author of that book talking about Russia's and Trump's KGB connections.
Today, that Trump is betraying Ukraine. He doesn't have a real ideology. It's about him, what's good for him. And he's been in bed with the Russians for a long time. I don't see that changing at all as long as he's president.
And before that goes, just a reminder, everybody, we are crowdfunded, and I'm not going to be, I don't want to stop a bunch and talk about the crowdfunding here. So if you could, I'll try and read your comments while we're going. I'll keep an eye out for them. But if you could help us out, the PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo are above and below. And then obviously we have Super Chats. If we can knock out that goal, that'd be great. Real quick, Tiffany said doing the heavy lifting. Bree says, can I get a tight hug instead? That ends in coitus. Oh, you asked the question first. Will you come hold my tits up while they heal? What the fuck? What's going on? I don't know what happened to your tits. I'm sorry. That sounds devastating. I will. Can I DoorDash that to you? Can you DoorDash somebody to come hug you and hold your tits up? I don't know.
So a lot of the talk around Trump being an asset, a Russian asset, some of it gets dismissed as, conspiracy theories, and it's all circumstantial evidence. What would you say to those accusations?
Well, first of all, I want to distinguish between an asset and an agent. And an agent is someone who knows he has signed on with the KGB. He can be given specific tasks. He's actually paid by them. That's not the way it works with an asset. The KGB made a point of cultivating powerful businessman. I'm thinking of Armand Hammer, who goes back to the days of Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. And he was an enormously wealthy American oil man who was very much an asset. And he was sort of aging out when the KGB began cultivating Trump. And you can say it is circumstantial, but there are an awful lot of circumstances. I've written 2 books about it. There's one point after another. It's backed up by a lot of documentation. And we have on the record interviews with Yuri Shvets, who was in Washington Station with the KGB recruiting American assets for the KGB back in the 80s when his colleagues at New York Station were cultivating Donald Trump.
How certain are you that Donald Trump is a Russian asset?
Completely certain. I've written 2 books about it, House of Trump, House of Putin, and American Compromat, and not a single fact has been challenged in my reporting. And
that's important, and I'll cut it there because now we're going to go to the facts of not only his reporting but other people's reporting as well. It is important to remember that everything I share with you today has not been refuted. Not one thing I share with you today has been refuted. Most of what I share with you today is in documents from our government. Most of these documents were created during the Trump administration by his own Justice Department. Most of it. That's where we've uncovered most of this. I also want to give a shout out before we get going to the owners of trumpfile.org. It is a great place to go if you're doing a deep dive. They do a good job of consolidating information and then giving you the sources. So they'll give you like a breakdown of what the source says, and then they'll give you the actual sources. So everything I cover today, I have verified. Now, some of the things I say today are going to be things people say, and all I can do is verify that they said it, and I can verify whether or not what they said was corroborated by other people. Again, outside of a written out plan signed by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, probably with a video of them signing it and saying this is not a deep fake. Look, here's something to prove this isn't a deep fake. Most of you aren't going to believe it. I recognize that Trump people aren't going to believe this no matter what. But when you hear Donald Trump, from now on, when you hear Donald Trump and Republicans say Russia, 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 I want you to just send this to anybody who says Russia, Russia, Russia. I just want you to send this to them, because the Russia, Russia, Russia hoax has so much evidence that I've had to, like, I've maybe done a fifth. Maybe a fifth of the evidence. And I only have up until just after Trump takes office. This doesn't even include the stuff that happened from 2019 until now. Like, that's another episode. But because we're talking about what Tulsi Gabbard says is Obama choosing to investigate Trump and doing it illegally, we're just going to cover the stuff that Tulsi Gabbard's talking about. So first, I want to talk about Trump's real estate empire. Sometime in 1984, Russian mafia figure David Bogatin purchases 5 luxury condos in Trump Tower for $6 million. Donald Trump is in the room with Bogatin when the paperwork is signed. State prosecutors in a later investigation have concluded that Bogatin purchased them to launder money, to shelter and hide assets, and used them for weekend parties. In 1987, the New York finds that the condos were used for money laundering, to hide profits from and evade taxes on 15 million gallons of gasoline he and his associates purchased and distributed in the New York City area. During the 80s and 90s, we and the U.S. government repeatedly saw a pattern by which criminals would use condos and high-rises to launder money. This is according to Jonathan Weiner, who was an assistant secretary for state for international law enforcement in the Clinton administration. It didn't matter that you paid too much because the real estate values would rise, and it was a way of turning dirty money into clean money. Think Breaking Bad and Walter White when he buys the car wash. Why did you buy the car wash? 1, because it's real estate and the value of that real estate goes up. But 2, you can run money through there and you can launder the money. This is how Russians historically have laundered money, is they do it through legitimate businesses or they do it through real estate purchases. It was done very systematically and explained why there are so many high rises where the units were sold, but no one is living in them. When Trump Tower was built, it was only the second high-rise in New York that accepted anonymous buyers. Everybody else is like, nah, we don't want money launderers. Not Donald Trump. He's like, we'll take, whatever, give me the cash. Almost a decade later, a Senate intelligence report confirms that transnational organized crime boss Semyon Mogilovich operates in the U.S. A joint FBI-DOJ report released the same year confirms David and his brother Jacob work for Mogilovich and his associates. Bogatin isn't the only Russian mafia figure doing business at Trump Tower. In 1995, authorities find the godfather of the Russian mob in America living at Trump property. The Russian mafia had been growing in New York City due to a wave of Soviet emigres and a crackdown on the Italian mob by then prosecutor and Trump friend Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani, who became the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York in 1983, waged a tactical war against New York's 5 organized crime families so successful that even the Italian government gave him a medal. The reason that we share this part is to show the conditioning. This is 1984. This is really the first time we know of that the Russians targeted Donald Trump because of his lack of respect for the law. He was a person who's building high rises, who allows anonymous buyers, doesn't really bother you once you buy it. Once you're in, do your thing. So they saw Donald Trump as a target who will choose money over the law virtually every time. So that's why that story's in there. Trump once met Nobel Peace Prize winner Dr. Bernard Lown and declared that he was actually going to ask Ronald Reagan to be the ambassador of the USSR. Remember, Donald Trump wasn't political. He never had political aspirations until he ran in 2016, which we'll cover as a lie also. Sometime in the spring, Donald Trump grills Nobel Peace Prize winner Dr. Bernard Lown about his meeting with Mikhail Gorbachev. Lown's under the impression that he's having lunch with Trump to discuss funding for cardiovascular research, but Trump has a different plan. He needs to know about Gorbachev. He said to me, "I hear you met with Gorbachev and you had a long interview with him, and you're a doctor, so you have a good assessment of who he is. Why would you want to know?" I asked, and he responded, "I intend to call my good friend Ronnie to make me plenipotentiary, I don't know what that means, ambassador for United States with Gorbachev." Those are the words he used. And he said he would go to Moscow and he'd sit down with Gorbachev. And then he took his thumb and he hit the desk and he said, "And within 1 hour, the Cold War would be over." 1984. Donald Trump's already doing his political shit. All you have to do is make me ambassador to Russia. The Cold War will be over. Loan spends 20 minutes going over his meeting with Gorbachev and answering questions about how the de facto leader of the Soviet Union behaves. It's the first and last time that Lown ever encounters with Donald Trump. But we see there that Donald Trump has plans to be politically active. At that point, we don't really know. Like, we don't know why he feels like he wants to be politically active. But we start to get some reporting that tells us maybe why Donald Trump is so interested in working with Russia. Donald and Ivana, this is in, sorry, let me get the year on this. It's up there, 1987. In 87, Donald and Ivana fly to Moscow and are put up by the Soviet government in a suite across from the Kremlin. For the KGB, it was a charm offensive. This is according to former KGB agent Yuri Shvets, who's going to be, you're going to want to remember that name. This is a former KGB agent who has kind of like spilled the beans on how the KGB operates and how they chose Trump as a mark in the early 80s. This is all being backed up. They had collected a lot of information on his personality, so they knew who he was personally. The feeling was that he was extremely vulnerable intellectually and psychologically, and he was prone to flattery. Are we not seeing that now in real time? That all you have to do is tell Donald Trump how great he is, and then you get what you want. Amy Lynn said, "My conspiracy theory forever has been Melania as a handler." That's actually in here. I didn't cover that, but that's not a bad conspiracy theory. Bamarola said, "So we don't have to stop. I'm invested." Thank you. This is what they exploited with Trump. They played the game as if they were immensely impressed by his personality and believed this is the guy who should be the president of the United States one day. 1987, the KGB agent is telling us in 87, they believed that Trump should be president of the United States one day. One of the parts of the reporting that I have that I didn't include here because I didn't think it was that relevant, but now looking back, maybe it was. There's a report from 1988 from the Soviets. It's an intel report, and it's the state of American politics. They call it elephants and donkeys, I think, or something. I think it's something like that. Donkeys and elephants, or elephants and donkeys. And what they did is they assessed the political landscape of the United States, and they said some pretty fucking spot on things. One, they said that they believed that Donald Trump could be cultivated to become a Republican president. That they believed that he was likely to be president one day. They also singled out Joe Biden, that he would likely be president one day. They said that they thought Bush would be president even though he was too dumb, so they didn't think he would be useful. Ironically, like all these other, obviously Obama they didn't point to Clinton. Ironically, the last two presidents we had, the KGB was able to somehow identify them early on. And what they saw with Joe Biden, just so we're clear, is that they saw that Joe Biden didn't want to escalate, and he thought, like, he kind of agreed with like this United States world strength, and let's use diplomacy to keep the world safe. So they had different views of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but they somehow correctly on an 88 assessment said these two people are probably going to be president at some point. Let's see. Let's go back. They played the game as if they were immensely impressed by his personality and believed this is the guy who should be the president one day. It is people like him who could change the world. They fed him these so-called active measure sound bites, and it happened. So it was a big achievement for the KGB, active measures at the time. Almost immediately after returning to the United States, Trump begins teasing a presidential run. This is 87. Now, Trump has told you repeatedly that he didn't think about running for president, but he starts teasing it. In September, he takes out ads attacking NATO. Oh, shit, where have we heard that before? And I wonder who would want him to take out ads attacking NATO at the time. Couldn't be Russia, could it? Definitely couldn't be Russia. He took out an ad, I think it was like $95,000, and he accused our allies, Japan and Saudi Arabia, of exploiting us. What's he do? Oh, all of our allies are exploiting us. Who would want that? Who would want that message? It's clearly a very pro-Russian message. It's the same thing that Russia was telling him. It's the same thing that Russians have been telling American diplomats forever, that all these other countries are taking advantage of you. What you really ought to do is side with us. It was unprecedented. I'm pretty familiar. This is Shvet still. I'm pretty well familiar with KGB active measures starting in the early 70s and 80s, and then afterwards with Russia active measures. I haven't heard anything like that or anything similar until Trump became president of this country because it was just silly. It was hard to believe that somebody would publish the ad under his name and that it will impress real serious people in the West, but it did. And finally, this guy became president. Again, 1987. That's when they start cultivating him. Let's go here. There's I think this is the actual ad that he posted. Yeah, here's the actual ad. He writes, Donald John Trump. To the American people, for decades, Japan and other nations have been taking advantage of the United States. The saga continues unabated as we defend the Persian Gulf, an area of only marginal significance to the United States for its oil supplies, but one upon which Japan and others are almost totally dependent. Why are these nations not paying the United States for the human lives and billions of dollars we are losing to protect their interests? Saudi Arabia, a country whose very existence is in the hands of the United States, last week refused to allow us to use their minesweepers. Over the year, the Japanese, unimpeded by the huge cost of defending themselves, have built a strong and vibrant economy with unprecedented surpluses. They knew Trump. They knew what they could do with Trump. You can read the rest of that if you want, but it's the same as his foreign policy now. Show him that other people are getting money and he's not, and he will be upset about it. Show him that other countries are successful and that the United States isn't getting a piece of that, and he will get upset. And he will spend his own money, allegedly, to publish that ad. This also happened. Now, Trump cash, this out, but I have never seen this. This was a clip from the Maury Povich show. This man is Trump's been trying to meet with Gorbachev forever. This is a Gorbachev impersonator, and they go to Trump Tower, and they stand outside and they call up to Trump like, "Hey, come meet Gorbachev." Trump's been trying to set up this meeting forever. So Trump comes running down the stairs to meet this impersonator.
Cathedral of Cash, the home of hyperbole and mansion to the master himself, Donald Trump, who made a special effort to whiz down from his penthouse office and greet our guest.
Mr. Trump is coming now. He's just come down very briefly. We were on our way. He wanted a couple of minutes.
So I think what happens, this is Trump's handler here on the left. Trump says, great honor to meet you. And this guy leans over from stories. I think it's him. Could be here. You can see him kind of lean over here. And he tells Trump, that's not Gorbachev.
He's just come down very briefly. We were on our way. He wanted a couple of
minutes. So the story from Trump's side is that somebody told him that wasn't Gorbachev, but then he played along after.
Minutes.
I like your tie.
Right color.
Great honor. Siba. Thank you.
Nice. I hope we didn't disturb your schedule.
No, it was beautiful, and I heard, and I couldn't have been happier. Very good. I couldn't have been happier. Good luck with everything.
Great people. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very glad.
Great time. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to pop in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's their side of the story, but somehow Trump was very excited to see Gorbachev, and that's not very important. I just want to show you that. Trump then sits with a interview for Playboy in 1989 and 90, and all I can say is, goddamn, like we should have seen what was coming. Between November 89 and February 1990, Trump sits down for multiple interviews with journalist Glenn Paskin for a feature for Playboy magazine. During one of these interviews, the conversation turns to Moscow, and Trump blasts Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev for trying to bring democracy to the totalitarian USSR. His criticism of Gorbachev is trying to bring democracy. Now, whatever you want to say about United States foreign policy and whether or not they're being honest with us, this idea that we have attacked countries for democracy over and over and over again seems to fly in the face of what Trump's saying here, is that the real problem with Gorbachev is that he's allowing the people to have a say. In those 5 years, Gorbachev had ended book banning. He had eliminated the secret police. He released political prisoners. He gave workers the right to strike. He opened elections to multiple political parties. He dramatically loosened state control of the media and allowed citizens to own businesses for the first time in 60 years. And the person in our country who was critical of that was Donald Trump. The person who, I'll be a dictator on day one. The person who we just watched a bunch of his supporters debate Mehdi Hassan saying we want an autocracy. We should have seen this coming, and we should trust what people have said. We shouldn't allow them to have this history and then go up on stage and be like, no, I'm here for democracy. According to Donald Trump, Gorbachev's willingness to give up the Soviet Union's control over society shows extraordinary weakness. Russia is out of control, and the leadership knows it. That's my problem with Gorbachev. Not a firm enough hand. He has shown extraordinary weakness. Trump points out the citizens' new ability to protest working conditions as an example of Gorbachev's perceived weakness. If Gorbachev was strong, Trump says, he would handle his people the way China handled Tiananmen Square in 1989. China declared martial law, killed thousands of civilians, and lied about the death count. That's how he thinks the United States should handle protests, too. He said the Chinese government almost blew it. They were vicious. They were horrible, but they put it down with strength. That shows you the power of strength. Our country is right now perceived as weak. The conversation doesn't end there. Trump goes on to say that the top officials he met in Moscow in 1987 are much tougher and smarter than our representatives. There he goes, glazing Russia for their authoritarianism. Soviet officials, including the KGB, were so invested in meeting Trump that at his request, his flight into the country was guided by 2 Russian fighter planes. Other interesting parts of this, Playboy magazine, they said, what does all this, the yacht, the Bronze Tower, the casinos really mean to you? Trump said, props for the show. And what is the show? Trump said, the show is Trump, and it is sold out performances everywhere. He was asked about his dream job. He said, the ultimate job for me would have been running MGM in the 30s and 40s, pre-television. There was an incredible glamour and style in those days that's gone now, and that's when you could control situations. In those days, when your great actor was an alcoholic and nobody ever found out, that was having tremendous control over things, which would be impossible today. I believe I've added show business to the real estate business, and that's been a positive for my properties and in my real life. Trump says if he runs for president, that he'll probably run as a Democrat, even though he's a Republican. During his first official presidential campaign in 2000, he runs as an independent and supports policies that he will later smear as far left socialism. Things, by the way, like universal health care. No big deal. Things, by the way, like a 14% tax increase on the wealthy. He said if he were president, Trump says he wouldn't save American hostages because in almost all cases, the hostages were told by our government not to be there. The only exception to this would be military hostages. He said, I like George Bush very much and support him and always will, but I disagree with him when he talks of a kinder, gentler America. I think if this country gets any kinder or gentler, it's literally going to cease to exist. I've always thought about the issue of nuclear war. I believe the greatest of all stupidities is people believing it will never happen because everybody knows how destructive it will be, so nobody uses weapons. What bullshit. Then Trump brings up like a pre-Me Too movement. Trump says the problem with celebrities or politicians beating and or sexually assaulting women is that it leaks and it hurts the abuser. The question is specifically about allegations about Mike Tyson, where he says it's unfortunate for one of the great fighters in history to have all this crap hanging over his head, or for politicians for that matter. We're living in an age where there are no boundaries left, which is unfortunate for our country. The problem is we're going to lose good talent because somebody likes looking at pretty women or pretty men. Somebody's sex life may mean absolutely nothing to the job at hand, but when the written word gels out, we lose somebody good and the country goes to hell. Yeah. The real problem we have is that when somebody is running for office and they're a sex pest, that we bring it up. We should just ignore it. We should ignore the fact that they abuse women, and we should, because they might be good at their job. He said, life is what you do while you're waiting to die. You know, it is all a rather sad situation. We're here and we live our 60, 70, or 80 years and we're gone. You win, and in the end, it doesn't mean a hell of a lot. But it is something to do to keep you interested. I truly believe that someone successful is never really happy because dissatisfaction is what drives him. I've never met a successful person who wasn't neurotic, which is like, think of who Trump is now. He just wants to win. That's why he fights all these stupid fights. That's why he keeps saying like he won the election in 2020. That's why he still talks about Obama's birth certificate. That's why he still talks about Russia. That's why he only focuses on places where he's lost, and he's determined to tell you that he didn't lose in those places. He won. This is who he's always been. He's an absolute sociopath. And he's saying, like, honest truth there, most rich people are fucking sociopaths. You don't want them leading you. They're crazy. By the way, Trump's presidential platform in 2000, let me give you some of this. He wanted to charge a 14.25% wealth tax to pay off the debt. You guys like that, Republicans? How about universal single-payer health care? He wanted middle-class tax cuts, and he wanted to eliminate the estate tax. He wanted tougher deals focused on China and Japan. That sounds about the same. He was pro-choice. He was moderate on guns, tough on crime. He wanted harsher penalties for anti-terror funding, which is ironic for a guy who was making all his money funding terrorism, housing terrorists. Campaign finance, he wanted to abolish soft money, transparency, and lift donation caps. That worked out well for him. And then he wanted a stronger border, not centralized. Here's where we get the first Epstein connection, which is also a Russian connection. Sometime in 99, construction begins on Trump World Tower in Manhattan, directly across from the United Nations. Trump, facing multiple bankruptcies and billions in debt, doesn't pay the cost himself. The project is financed by two German banks, Deutsche Bank and Hypo und Währungsbank. Now, Trump doesn't fund this himself or with American banks because he's fucked over all the American banks. They won't do business with him anymore. They just simply won't do it, so he has to go to these German banks. Hypo und Währungsbank is actually an operation under UniCredit Bank, which pled guilty in 2019 to conspiring to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and to defraud the United States by processing hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions through the U.S. financial system on behalf of Iran. If Deutsche Bank sounds familiar, it should. The bank has been tied to countless criminals across the globe, most recently Jeffrey Epstein. The bank paid a $150 million fine in July of 2020 for overlooking hundreds of alarm-ringing transactions by Epstein, even after Epstein's attorney requested information on how to withdraw funds without hitting any radars. By the way, I believe that's Dershowitz. So now we've got Trump, Dershowitz, and Epstein all doing business with the same bank, who is obviously is a bank that doesn't mind like criminal enterprise. As CNN reports, the suspicious transactions flagged by the regulator included payments to individuals who were publicly alleged to have been Epstein's co-conspirators in sexually abusing young women, as well as payments to Russian models, school tuitions for several women, hotel expenses, and direct payments to numerous women with Eastern European last names. Now, we also know that it appears Epstein is the reason that Trump knows Melania, Eastern European last name. This is what we're asking for in the Epstein list. This is what we want. We want Deutsche Bank. We want these records. Same place we wanted to go to get Trump's records, which we can't get. These banks cover for criminals. That's not going to be super relevant to the rest of this, but it's there. Then Trump starts selling condos to Russians and Soviets like it's going out of style. Early in 2001, Trump World Tower, which again was funded by those criminal banks, opens in Manhattan. Between construction beginning in 99 and the end of 2004, Trump sells at least 65 condos to Russian buyers and the entire 45th floor to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for $4.5 million. Many, about 75% of these condos, nobody ever lives in. Nobody ever even occupies these condos. The fourth floor sold to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It gets used sometimes. By 2004, a third of the units on floors 76 through 83, which didn't sell before the building opened, belonged to individuals and companies with money from Russia and its neighboring states. I know that like conservatives want a check from Russia to Donald Trump, and that's literally like the extent that they will accept that, and even then they'd be like, well, maybe they're just what's wrong with giving him money? But the point in showing all this again is not to say that Donald Trump and Russia had this plan. Russia is using him all along the way, and they're able to use him because Trump is easily bought. So they're funneling and they're hiding all of this money, and they're laundering all this money through Trump Towers. Why? Because Trump doesn't care. Trump's just there to make money. But they also have influence over him. When they ask for a favor, if he tells them no, that's a problem for him. This is leverage. When the same customers come back day after day or year after year, they have leverage. Like you guys have leverage with me. If I start covering shit that you don't care about and you go watch something else, that's your leverage. I've got to do something different. I probably have to cover different information, right? That this type of stuff that's keeping your business afloat, keeping you from going under. This is some of the best leverage you could possibly have. Brian says the dark-haired fascist who debated Hassan has been fired from his job for his views. That dude went from fascism to socialism real quick. On the 78th floor, a Russian who once was accused of mob ties and extortion by an oligarch. On the 79th, an Uzbek jeweler investigated for money laundering who was eventually executed on the street in Manhattan. And 4 floors higher, a pro-Moscow Ukrainian politician whose party hired a Donald Trump advisor. And we'll get to that. Some of the mortgages are issued by Semyon Kislin, who is a Ukrainian immigrant, a Rudy Giuliani donor, and former KGB spotter who met Trump in the late 70s. In December of 99, he was outed as working for legendary mafia boss Ivankov, I don't know how to say that first name, the godfather of Russian organized crime in the United States. Ivankov was living where? Trump Tower in 1995. One individual, which again is money that the Russian oligarchs are paying Trump to allow them to do their criminal activity in New York. One individual Kislin provides a mortgage to is Salgin, who will go on to work with Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign manager, in the Putin-sponsored Ukrainian Party of Regions, which is, and we'll get to this, the Ukrainian Party of Regions is a party in Ukraine that is like the Russian loyalists or the Russian apologists. And Paul Manafort worked for them. And Paul Manafort worked to help those Ukrainians try and gain independence from Ukraine and become part of Russia. And he was paid handsomely for that job. And he was paid handsomely. You can go trace the money. It comes from Russia. Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign manager in 1999, he works with him later. I think it's in 2004 that he winds up working with Paul Manafort. And Paul Manafort's working in Ukraine. It's highly unusual for individuals to issue formal mortgages for U.S. luxury real estate. And the tower loans are the only ones Kislin ever made in New York. In 2002, when Trump is $4 billion in debt, Kirstenova Realty uses a reception at the Bolshoi Kempinski Hotel in Moscow to pitch condos at Trump World Tower and other Trump properties. They're doing business for him. They're doing a favor for him. Or they're saying, this is the spot. If you want to launder money into the United States, this guy doesn't give a fuck. Go over there. Over a decade later, real estate broker Ilya Reznik tells USA Today that he sold dozens of condos in Trump's Florida properties to Russian buyers. Father-son developers Michael and Gil Deezer believe Russians own at least 10% of the units that they've built in Trump properties. That's a not insignificant amount of purchasers for Trump properties. When you tie in the Saudis, where he's clearly doing bidding for them, you can see that Trump is easily bought and paid for. Trump goes on Howard Stern later in 2001. And the guest on this interview is a guy named AJ Benza. AJ Benza is a reporter from I don't know which gossip column or which where is he from? Did I write that down? I don't remember. He's a New York gossip columnist. He's they're arguing because AJ Benza's on there and Trump calls in to harass him because AJ's former girlfriend supposedly left him for Trump. So Trump calls in to like talk shit. And then Benza reveals, while Trump tries to speak over him, he says, he used to call me when I was a columnist and say, I was just in Russia. The girls have no morals. You got to get out there. But because Trump likes to talk over people when they say something, the conversation sounds more like this. I assume AJ's clean. I hope he's clean. Benza, meanwhile, but he bangs Russian people. Robin, Russian people? Stern, Russian people? Trump, who are you talking about, Russian, AJ? I don't know anything. Facts. Benza, he used to call me when I was a columnist. He used to call me when I was a columnist and say, Trump, look, AJ, hey, Howard. Benza, I was just in Russia. Trump, AJ wouldn't feel this way. Benza, the girls have no morals. If he won, if you win, Benza, you got to get out there. He's out of his mind, this guy. Trump tries to cover that up. You ever caught somebody like in a lie and you're trying to focus on that one part of the lie and they want to talk about anything other than the lie that they just told you? And then they're like, well, well, you're just upset. No, I want to talk about this lie. Trump did not want to talk about it. We now know Trump's going on Howard Stern and lying about any Russian connections. Why is he doing that? If this is on the up and up, if we know for a fact that he's been visiting Russia, if we know for a fact that he's been there multiple times, if we know for a fact that he's gone to parties in Russia, that he's stayed at hotels provided by the Russian government, if we know all of this for a fact, why is Trump lying about it on Howard Stern's show? Hey, Jen.
Okay. So I just figured I'd do a little interjection.
Good time. Let me read these two real quick and then do her. Mary said, great work, guys. All this information can be found if you try. And I read that one. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I'm giving you the update that I have for my total. I add on so you can catch up with PayPal. So we are about 2 hours left of the show. We do this each day, Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 1. So we've got about 2 hours left of the show. We are crowdfunded. And here comes the comments. Oh, get a real job. Get the real job. This is our job. So how you can help us out, hit that gift goals. If you look at the top left-hand corner, that's the remaining balance that Jay's going to be updating that total. So Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Super Chats, all of that go towards knocking down the rest of that balance. So we can keep doing this each day. Please subscribe if you haven't already. On Amazon, you can, on Twitch, you can use an Amazon Prime sub, which wouldn't cost you anything. On YouTube, you can subscribe for free, but we also have 4 different memberships. We do different events, watch parties, private things for members, and other benefits. So if you guys could help support us that way, that would be fantastic. Check out our link tree. We are on most social media platforms. We've got merch. Jay is on Cameo, and we upload these episodes also on Spotify. So yeah, if you guys could help knock out that gift goal, that would be fantastic. I mean, we're crowdfunded, so helps keep the lights on. And I know everybody likes lights, and when Jay's internet's not giving us issues, so it helps keep the internet up and running. So that'd be awesome. So why did the employee at the calendar company get fired?
I don't know.
He took a day off.
Could have been leap year. Maybe it was the right time, or I guess I'd be adding a day. Sherry said, thanks, Jen, for saving the show today. Han says, Connor was fired from his job today, the guy you had. Oh, that guy's name's Connor. That's right. Okay. Melissa said, so you don't get screamed at. Thank you. Pink said, help you find the button. There it is. Jubilees, proud fascist. Fired for my political beliefs. My name is Connor. I was recently shown that I'm so glad to lose my job. I wish I knew what his job was. Izzy said, for today and yesterday, thank you. We weren't even here yesterday, so appreciate it. I got paid on my day off. All right, on to the next part. This is what that introduction video was talking about. I told you guys Bayrock would come back into this story. We're now in 2006, and if you don't hear me say the date, you'll see it on these. These are the dates of what we're talking about. So now we're in 2006. Felix Sater is one of the criminals operating Bayrock Group, the organization responsible for the development of Trump's Soho and other Trump properties. He was born in Russia in 1966, then moved to Israel in 1973. Felix Sater was convicted in 1993 for stabbing a man in the face with broken glass during a New York bar fight. A few years later, he was implicated in the creation of a fraudulent stock brokerage, White Rock Partners, that was used to launder money and defraud investors by manipulating the price of securities in the market. Sater avoided charges by fleeing to Russia. At some point, Sater attempted to earn the CIA's favor by offering to purchase anti-aircraft weapons from the Soviet Union black market, supposedly up for sale by Osama bin Laden. It could just be a coincidence that Semyon Mogolovich began acquiring anti-air weapon factories a few years earlier. The deal was not made, but Sater did become an informant for the FBI on issues related to Wall Street and black market missiles, and he was free to return to the United States without fear of going to prison. Thanks, FBI. Bring those dangerous criminals back in as long as they're telling you stuff. According to a 2020 U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee report, Sater was able to help the FBI by relying on a large network of contracts in military, intelligence, and government positions primarily in Russia. Sater likely maintained this network while working down the hall from Donald Trump. This arrangement in Sater's office space on the 26th floor of, what did we say? Trump Tower, only several offices away from Trump, gave Sater greater access to Trump, allowing Sater the ability to see Trump frequently and pitch business opportunities to him. During this time, Trump would see Sater every day, generally more than once. In general, Sater recalled that he had interacted with Trump hundreds of times over the course of their relationship. Now, this is important because Sater works for Bayrock, and Bayrock is a group that Trump is going to be linked to. They're linked to his TV show. They're linked to licensing agreements. This is the criminal organization that represents Donald Trump. That same year, I think 2007, Trump signs a contract with Russia and makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Trump attends the Moscow Millionaire Fair. Trump called upon Sergei Milyan, president of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce, earlier in the year to help organize this trip for Russia. In April of 2016, Milyan tells Russian news agency RIA Novosti that he and Trump signed a contract to develop real estate projects in Russia and other former Soviet states during their work together in 2007, but nothing was ever built. Instead of Trump bringing his business to Russia, Russians brought themselves to his U.S. properties. Nothing ever got built in Russia, but around 2007 and 2008, Russians would buy up dozens of apartments in Trump properties in the U.S. The level of business amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars, what he received as a result of interaction with Russian businessmen. Now, this is how Trump operates, and this is how Russians have figured out how to bribe Trump, and this is why Trump crypto is really scary, because what they're doing isn't technically illegal, and what they're doing is they're buying property. But what they're actually doing is buying influence. And you might say, like, oh, what if they're just going to spend $5 million on a property for no reason? No. They're going to buy that $5 million of property from Trump, and Trump's going to make money. And if they ever want to sell that property, it's going to go up. Like these real estate investments go up. It's a great deal for them. They get to put some money in Trump's pocket. They get to do it in a way that on paper looks legal, and they get to influence him. That's why I'm showing you all the times Trump has taken Russian money. And Trump publicly, in the lead up to the 2016 election, was like, I don't do business in Russia. I've done very little business in Russia. I have nothing to do with the Russians. It would be one thing if Trump campaigned and told you all of this stuff. Like, oh yeah, here's all the business deals I've done with Russians. It'd be one thing if he was transparent about that and then said, I'm just a businessman. But you have to ask yourself as a Trump supporter, why is he lying about all of that? If there's an explanation for all of this, why does he lie instead of just explaining it? Frankie said, you are literally earning your money today. Great show. Thank you. Amy said, trying not to send too many chats today. Not about me today. Thank you. Appreciate that. Oh yeah, I wanted to do this too. So then Citizens United is like 2007, 2008. I don't have a graphic for this, but after Citizens United is when we really saw Russia take off. So if you're unfamiliar with what Citizens United is, it's a Supreme Court ruling that basically just says that if you are a billionaire, you can spend as much money on political action committees as you want because it's freedom of speech. You get to use your money however you want, so you can do that to promote any politician that you want to. Before that ruling, Russia was spending about $5.5 million on United States elections. That number jumped to $300 million now. They are heavily invested. You can look at, I'll get to some of it a little bit later, but where they've given some of that money. Tim Pool got some of that money. Benny Johnson got some of that money. I think Tucker has gotten some of that money. They funnel this money from Russia through legitimate organizations. Ask yourself why these people have millions of dollars. Ask yourself why Tim Pool, a YouTuber who has good numbers, but not massive numbers, why is somebody the same size of Tim Pool getting $50,000 for ad reads and Tim Pool's getting $1 million for ad reads? It's the same amount of impressions. It's because they're funneling money. It's just Russia trying to force it. And it's going to become real clear here as we get into the actual election and Russia meddling. But I want to continue to lay the groundwork here. Is this? Yeah, I did that one. All right. Here is the executives at Bayrock who were forced to kind of just spill the beans on what they were doing. This is in 2010. On May 10th, two former executives at Bayrock, Felix Sater, who now you've seen his name like 10 different times, and Tavik Arif, with the sole, sorry, I got ahead. On May 10th, those two filed a lawsuit alleging that the company is owned by mafia members with the sole purpose of money laundering and tax evasion. According to the lawsuit, Arif stated the firm backed by oligarchs and money they stole from Russian people. In addition, the suit alleges Bayrock was substantially and covertly mob-owned and operated. The company's real purpose, the executives claim, was to develop hugely expensive properties bearing the Trump brand and then use the projects to launder money and evade taxes. The list of claims includes lying to investors, buyers, and lenders, using the organization for money laundering and tax evasion, including paying millions to partners Felix Sater and Tavik Arif under the table, operating on behalf of the mob or mafia, and creating multiple other businesses to expand operations beyond the Bayrock name. The other businesses are Ocean Club, Merrimack, Camelback, Spring Street, and Whitestone. If the last name sounds familiar, that's because it's similar to White Rock, the illegal brokerage Felix Sater established to commit stock fraud. That was from earlier. So now you see the people around Trump, the ones in his ear, Felix Sater. He's running multiple fraudulent businesses, and then it turns out they're working for the Russian mafia with the sole purpose of laundering money through Trump's organizations. Trump then sells a mansion. I've covered this before, but in 2008, this is the one that, like, Republicans, I'm going to need an answer for this one. Donald Trump sells a Palm Beach mansion he's never lived in for twice the amount he bought for. And here's another Epstein connection, by the way. The buyer is a Russian oligarch, Dmitry Rybolovlev. Trump bought the property for $41 million in 2004, beating out Jeffrey Epstein. That was the end of their friendship. This was the actual end of Epstein and Trump's friendship. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was a real estate dispute. And Trump bought this mansion. Rybolovlev in 2008 pays Trump $95 million. A couple years later, a Palm Beach County appraisal determines it's worth about $59.8 million. And it sat on the market. And it sat on the market for somewhere around like $60 million. Nobody wanted to buy it. Nobody would buy this mansion. Then all of a sudden, a buyer comes in, bidding against nobody, and pays $95 million. According to Michael Cohen, Trump believes that Rybolovlev is simply a middleman for Putin. Cohen said after Trump sold a Palm Beach mansion he purchased for $41 million to a Russian oligarch named Dmitry Rybolovlev for $95 million in 2008, Cohen says Trump told Cohen he believed the real buyer was Putin. That's from Michael Cohen's book. Why did Rybolovlev make this deal? There was publicity about a messy divorce and speculation that Rybolovlev was hiding assets from his wife. Alternately, he may have made this purchase as an investment. Either way, the whole point would be to get his money back at some point. Overpaying for the property makes no sense, nor does his complete failure to conduct even the most rudimentary due diligence. There must have been another reason, a reason to give Trump tens of millions of dollars with no expectation of a financial return. One possibility is that Russian leader Vladimir Putin saw an opportunity to exploit Trump's financial problems to obtain his loyalty and his indebtedness. The Russian billionaire is also financially connected to Wilbur Ross, Trump's Secretary of Commerce, through the Bank of Cyprus. Rybolovlev was later arrested and spent 11 months in jail in 1996 for plotting to murder another wealthy businessman. After 2008, he's involved in multiple financial struggles. And again, I do want to stop for anybody that's coming in. You have to understand what this is. This is leverage. This is not a handshake agreement between Trump and Putin to destroy America. At this point, I'm still not sure that Trump is aware of what Putin is doing. He may still not be aware of what Putin's doing. I don't know if you've ever had somebody that, like, you relied upon for money, or if you had or a boss. You worked at a job where, like, things happened at your job that you don't like, and you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with this. But if I deal with it, like, maybe I'll lose my job. And so you just go with it. And that's leverage. Your employer has that leverage over you. They use money as a way to get you to do the things that they want, but also maybe to overlook things that you wouldn't normally overlook. And Trump at this point, this is 2008, is deeply, deeply in debt. And he's having a lot of financial troubles. So if Trump believes this is from Putin, and Putin comes in and overpays for a property, Trump probably thinks, oh, that was nice of you, Putin. And maybe it's not like, maybe he thinks Putin is his friend. But either way, that gives him leverage. And we see that leverage play out over time. We see how much leverage Putin has on Trump's presidency. Later in that year, in 2013, the FBI raids Trump Tower. On or shortly before April 16th, the FBI busts 2 illegal gambling rings operating in Unit 63A of Trump Tower, which agents secretly wiretapped 2 years ago. Almost 36 members and associates of Russia-based transnational crime syndicates are indicted on April 17th. The rings are believed to be ran by Alamzan, a.k.a. Taiwanchik, a.k.a. Chunov, a major transnational crime figure who's been associated with Mogilevich again for decades. The U.S. government has previously identified Tokhanov in drug distribution, illegal arms sales, and trafficking in stolen vehicles. Officials also believe he's responsible for fixing beauty pageants, and he was indicted in 2002 for bribing Olympic figure skating judges. He fled the country to avoid prosecution after the 2002 indictment. He's lived in Russia ever since and makes an appearance later this year as a VIP guest at Donald Trump's 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. This guy runs an illegal gambling ring, gets Trump's tower raided, and Trump just doesn't care? Why don't you come be my special guest at Miss Universe pageant? His gambling and sports betting rings operate in New York, Los Angeles, Russia, and Ukraine. Vadim Trincher, a Russian businessman and professional poker player, owns the $5 million condo on the 63rd floor of Trump Tower. Nabed owns the entire 51st floor of the building, which is where he hosted his own high-stakes poker games. Trump has been a Russian asset forever. He's been used, they use him to funnel money. They've all been doing it. Again, this is not like a connect to the dots. Like, here's Trump, here's Putin. They worked on this together. This was years of Putin cultivating Trump as an asset and the Russians using him for their criminal organizations. In 2000, here's where we start getting the connections of names you might know. I think we're mostly out of Russian names. 2013, you might recognize the name Rex Tillerson. He's ExxonMobil's chief CEO, and then he winds up being Trump's Secretary of State for some reason. Think about this. The Secretary of State, largely responsible for most of our foreign policy and our foreign actions, he receives the Order of Friendship Medal from Putin. The medal is awarded to foreigners who improve international relations with Russia. Tillerson brags about his decades-long relationship with Putin, who's known since '99. He spent many years reshaping ExxonMobil's foreign interests to do business with Russia and its state-owned energy company, Rosneft. By the 90s, Tillerson was overseeing many of Exxon's foreign operations. He played a key role in Exxon's involvement in the huge Sakhalin oil and natural gas project on Russia's eastern coast. That was a warm-up for the $3.2 billion deal in which Exxon and Russia's state-controlled Rosneft announced they would work together to explore oil in Russia's Arctic region. In 2011, Tillerson flew to the Russian resort town of Sochi to meet Putin for the announcement. As news photographers recorded the scene, the men shook hands and smiled broadly at each other. Now, why is it that Trump enters office with all this Russian collusion shit, and he nominates Rex Tillerson, who is Putin's friend, in many cases business partner, and somebody who has been given the Order of Friendship? Why would he choose that man as Secretary of State? I can't find any real connection between Donald Trump and Tillerson before that. And we do know that when presidents take office, largely their cabinet selections are people that are recommended to them because the president doesn't know everybody. So somebody is recommending Tillerson. Who might those people be that are recommending Tillerson? I've never seen Tillerson up for a different job. I've never seen anybody float Tillerson as Secretary of State. Why would you take an oil executive and make that oil executive Secretary of State? It makes no fucking sense unless there are people behind the scenes that are pushing you to put Putin's friends in office. And I legitimately do believe this. I legitimately believe Trump didn't know any of this. Paul Manafort is and was a Russian asset. Rex Tillerson is and was a Russian asset. Michael Flynn was and is a Russian asset. Many members of Trump's, just because they've infiltrated the Republican Party, many members of Trump's inner circle were Russian assets. And I don't believe that Trump actually knew that. I don't think that he connected all of these dots because why would he put Tillerson up for that position? he has all this heat from Russia, and he puts up Tillerson. It doesn't make any sense. His selections tell me that Trump didn't understand these Russian connections and that he was getting at least bad political advice, but that advice seemed to favor Russia. And this is when we meet Carter Page. And I will admit something about Carter Page. A while ago, I debated Maude. And Maude loves talking about Crossfire Hurricane, and they love talking about Carter Page. And if you talk to any Republican about Carter Page, what they'll tell you about Carter Page is he's a nobody. The reason they do that is because Carter Page is kind of like what kicked off the Russian investigation. We're not there yet, but I wanted to introduce you to Carter Page. He's going to come up 4 times. But what they say is that Carter Page was a nobody, a low-level staffer who Trump says I never even met. And they say that when he went around bragging about his Russian connections, he was just making shit up. He was just trying to seem cool. He was in news. I think it was in Australia. He talked about it in Australia. The conversation was recorded, and that's when they used the FISA warrant to start tracking Carter Page. But I want to show that in 2013, long before any of you knew who Carter Page was, long before any of us knew who Carter Page was working with Russia. He wound up being a Trump campaign energy consultant and foreign policy advisor. And he writes a letter in 2013 to an academic publisher boasting about working as an advisor to the Kremlin. Over the past half year, I've had the privilege to serve as an informal advisor to the staff of the Kremlin in preparation for their presidency of the G20 summit next month, where energy issues will be a prominent point on the agenda. Page is an energy consultant and foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. He lived in Moscow for 3 years, from 2004 to 2007, where he worked for a firm on deals for Gazprom, which is the energy giant in business with Putin friend and crime ringleader Mogilevich. That's about the 50th time you've heard the word Mogilevich. Do you see how, like, on Russia's side, this circle is actually pretty small? Every name that you hear once and you don't hear again is tied to Russian oligarchs, largely Mogilevich. Page founded a U.S. investment fund called Global Energy Capital in 2008 with a former Gazprom executive, Sergei Yatsenko. Sometime in 2014, the FBI receives a warrant to monitor Page under suspicions that he was a victim of Russian intelligence targeting. Well, holy fucking shit. 2014. The FBI was on to Carter Page in 2014. This story that Trump people love to tell you, and the defense they have of monitoring Carter Page, is that he was a nobody who was at a dinner and said, "Oh, I work with the Russians," and that was the extent of the information they had to suspect him of working with the Russians. It's a fucking lie. Here we are in 2014, nothing to do with Trump. The FBI has a warrant to monitor Page, saying that he's a victim of Russian intelligence targeting. He becomes an advisor to Trump in March 2016, and in October 2016, the FBI applies for another warrant using the FISA process to surveil Page as a Russian operative. Now, just think about this logistically. If the FBI has already said that you are a threat 2 years earlier, and they monitor you and they see that you're working with Russia, and they say that you're probably targeted by Russians to be an operative, and then 2 years later you're working for a presidential campaign, and you're openly bragging about working with Russia while you're working for that presidential campaign, are you really, Republicans, are you really going to fucking tell me Carter Page did it too? I think you might be right. Papadopoulos might be the one in Australia. Carter Page was bragging too, but it was somewhere else. I might be mixing up where they were. Thank you, Frankie. I do think you're right. Papadopoulos was in Australia. But Carter Page was also bragging about this. So if you have somebody who's been investigated twice, or once and now twice, for the same thing, are we really going to say like this was a low-level nobody? We just investigated him for no reason. And now we're bringing in the Obama stuff. Because part of this criticism about Obama is that Obama was just upset that Trump won, so he started these investigations for no fucking reason. Well, long before we knew Trump was going to be president, long before we knew he was running, Obama's administration is already investigating Carter Page. And you're going to see that with a lot of these people. Moving on to 2013. After the 2013 Miss Universe pageant, which was held in Moscow, in an interview with Real Estate Weekly, Trump brags about meeting with Russian oligarchs for the Trump Tower Moscow project. He said, the event offered a good networking opportunity. The Russian market is attracted to me. I have a great relationship with many Russians, and almost all of the oligarchs were in the room. That is a far cry from Trump saying, I don't know anything about Russia. I don't do business with Russia. I barely know anybody. I don't know Putin. I don't know these people. That is a far cry from the lines he gave during the 2016 election, is it not? Is that not very, very different than what he's always said? Again, these are the types of things that we investigate regularly. When somebody is that involved with the foreign government, we at the very least will say we need to watch them. This in 2013, after Trump brags about meeting all the oligarchs, I think this is where we set the stage for the Trump Tower meeting. In an interview, wait, that's the same one. Shit. Maybe I didn't get the link for that one. I did the wrong link. I'm gonna have to skip it. Let me give you Paul Manafort now. Now I'm going to introduce you to Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort, who winds up being Trump's campaign chairman, the person responsible for running Trump's campaign, and somebody that has tons of Russia connections. This is from, I think this is from 20. Oh, I took the actual article here. Okay, this is from London Times in 2016. Fresh details of alleged secret payments allocated for Paul Manafort by the pro-Russian party of Ukraine's former president have emerged after 12 itemized regime accounting entries totaling $7.61 million were obtained by the Times. If you don't remember from before, Paul Manafort was working for the pro-Russian party in Ukraine, and that was in Crimea specifically. Crimea is an important area of Ukraine, and it's important to Russia because it gives them access to sea transit. And so you had people in that area who Russia had been influencing forever. Russia had been running an influence campaign in Crimea for a decade, trying to convince people that their real home was Russia and that they weren't really Ukrainian and that they had more in common with the Russians than the Ukrainians. And maybe they should go back to Russia. Maybe they should be part of Russia. And one of the people behind that on the Ukrainian side was Paul Manafort. He told us that he wasn't paid by this party, but now we have 12 itemized accounting entries. The payments designated for the man who would later become Trump's campaign chief were detailed in the black accounting ledger of Viktor Yanukovych's ousted regime. Remember, Yanukovych was run out by the Ukrainians because they believed he was doing the bidding of Russia. And where did he run to? He ran to Russia because that's exactly what he was doing. The Ukrainians overthrew a pro-Russian president, Yanukovych, and working for Yanukovych, the pro-Russian president of Ukraine, was Paul Manafort. And Paul Manafort became Trump's campaign manager. So Russia pays the Ukrainian president to be pro-Ukraine and to do their bidding. The Ukrainian president pays Paul Manafort to do pro-Russia meddling. And then that person runs Donald Trump's campaign, and there's no connection there. We're just supposed to, it has nothing to do with that. The ledger was used to record $2 billion allegedly handed out under the table to political consultants, election commissioners, ministers, parliamentarians, judges, and journalists from 2007 to 2012. Here's the actual entries. You can look at this from the New York Times. The entries were made between 2009 and 2012 and are individually listed as payments for Mr. Manafort's contractor expenses. Detectives from the Ukrainian National Anti-Corruption Bureau have said that a further 10 entries bring the total amount of payments designated for Mr. Manafort to $12.7 million. Mr. Yanukovych, a close ally of Putin, was forced to flee Moscow in 2014 after a botched attempt to crush a popular uprising. Protesters ransacked his party's office, making off with the handwritten ledgers. They were later passed on to the new Anti-Corruption Bureau. Mr. Manafort remained a close advisor of the former president to the end, even attending security briefings in the anti-revolution situation room. Critics fear that knowledge of Mr. Manafort's financial affairs in Moscow could leave the man steering the Republican campaign at risk of Russian blackmail. The entries obtained by the Times clearly differentiate between expenses and items associated with Mr. Manafort labeled contract. The largest payments, $3.4 million in June of 2012, $1.075 million in January 2010, two $750,000 payments in September 2010 and October 2009, and one for $500,000 in November 2010, are marked Paul Manafort contract Manafort, payment to Manafort, or simply Manafort. 3 payments of $6,000 in 2009, as well as $846,000 in April 2010, and $202,000 in September. Yada yada yada. If not, it is not known if Manafort received these payments. He's denied working for the Ukrainian government, baffling former Kiev officials. We've had so many meetings in Kiev and Washington, said Andrei Portnoy, the nonpartisan former head of Mr. Yanukovych's presidential administration. Mr. Manafort was wise, persuasive, and experienced, which is a crazy thing for him to do when he's not there. Like, it's crazy for him to act wise, persuasive, and experienced when he's not there. Documents disclosed by the Department of Justice appear to confirm the Trump campaign leader has never declared his work for the Ukrainian government or Mr. Yanukovych's party, as would be required by U.S. legislation. There is no declaration corresponding to the payments detailed in the ledger. U.S. legislation requires anyone working on behalf of a foreign government or political party to submit a declaration of their activities to the Attorney General. Now, this is in 2016. This is before we have the Mueller investigation, which concludes exactly this. So what's crazy about the Mueller investigation is some of it we already knew, but there was so much shit about Donald Trump that that they didn't like. It kind of went under the radar. This is August 17th, 2016. We haven't even had the election yet at this point. Hannah Herman, Yanukovych's former communication advisor and party MP, told the New York Times the Manafort had helped the government in negotiations with the IMF. She also initially appeared to accept that the accounting book was real, but changed tact when informed that Mr. Manafort, a personal friend, was listed in it. Perhaps you misunderstood me. I don't deny that such documents may have existed, but I'm definite it does not exist now, right now. All the documents, all the data that was within the Party of Region's office was burnt during the uprising. But we already covered that. Not everything was burnt. There's lots of documents that during the uprising people took and they turned it over to the Ukrainian government. She then denied the book existed altogether after saying it existed, then finding out Manafort was in it and saying, oh, never mind, it was burnt. Then she denied the book existed altogether, claiming no such records had been kept and that the financial documents given to the investigators had been faked. Her other comments gave an insight into the operations of a party that Mr. Manafort worked for almost a decade. You'll do some business for me and I'll pay you $300,000. If we had such a conversation, we would have never signed anything. Again, these don't say that they were signed. These just say this was their ledger. So this is them paying it. It's not signed here, but here's the, you can read them out, the list of payments. You can go watch this or go read this later. Trump's campaign chief sabotaged U.S. interests in Ukraine and encouraged Russian nationalism in Crimea. A prosecutor investigating the Republican strategists alleges in a damning memo written last year. The report leaked to the Times sets out legal options for prosecuting Mr. Manafort in Ukraine for conspiring with a criminal organization and inciting ethnic hatred and separatism. The senior Ukrainian prosecutor alleges that in 2006, Manafort orchestrated a series of anti-NATO, anti-Kyiv protests in Crimea led by Yanukovych's pro-Russian Party of Regions, now designated a criminal organization. So Manafort's helping run a criminal organization in Ukraine that is pro-Russia. They get run out. Then the people of Ukraine overthrow that fucking government because they don't do the bidding of Ukraine. They do the bidding of Russia. And they're racist, by the way. And Manafort, and then Trump's like, let's have you run my campaign. You, guys, let's have you do it. No charges were pursued because of lack of evidence after Crimea was annexed. Mr. Manafort did not respond to a request for comment. Again, those aren't our charges. Those would be charges brought by the Ukrainians. Now we start to see this take shape. This is starting in 2014. Russia, and you need to know about their IRA, which is the Internet Research Agency. They shift their focus to the United States election. Sometime in April, in again 2014, Trump hasn't announced yet, Russia's IRA forms the Translator Project to work on U.S. election interference efforts. And again, this isn't unusual. We do this, they do this, China does this, everybody tries to influence elections. The IRA had a graphics department, a data and analysis department, an SEO department, an IT department, and a finance department, a fake news version of what a real newsroom would look like. That same month, Mikhail Ivanovich Bystrov takes over leadership. The agency was founded in June 2013 and funded by the company Concord Management and Consulting. Now, several Russian media outlets have claimed that the agency is funded by Prigozhin, who is an oligarch, I don't even know what that, restaurateur? Is that restaurateur? Called the Kremlin chef in the independent press for his lucrative government contracts and his close relationship with Putin. When a reporter from the opposition paper, Novaya Gazeta, infiltrated the agency posing as a job seeker, she discovered that one of the team leaders was an employee of Prigozhin's Concord Holding Company. So we have now the IRA starting to do float some ideas and start tracking what may work in America. What type of messaging might work in America? And this is where we bring in Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, you guys are probably familiar with, but this is where like he kind of enters the scene. In 2014, Steve Bannon and his company, Cambridge Analytica, went to Facebook and Twitter, and they got all of their data. They were able to purchase data from Facebook and Twitter to test a digital manipulation tactic using fake profiles and bots to spread Russian messaging. Bannon co-founded the company in 2013 with fellow conservative Robert Mercer and became vice president and secretary of Cambridge Analytica in 2014. In an interview Tuesday with the Washington Post at his lawyer's London office, Wiley said that Bannon, while he was a top executive at Cambridge Analytica and head of Breitbart News, was deeply involved in the company's strategy and approved spending nearly $1 million to acquire data, including Facebook profiles, in 2014. We had to get Bannon to approve everything at this point. Bannon was Alexander Nix's boss, said Wiley, who was Cambridge Analytica's research director. Alexander Nix didn't have the authority to spend that much money without approval. Now, this is 2014, just to connect some dots. Bannon then becomes associated with the Trump campaign, and he is one of Trump's senior advisors before eventually a rift with Kellyanne Conway gets him out of the Trump administration. He and Kellyanne Conway, I can't remember what it was. They disagreed on something, and Steve Bannon is removed. But everybody knows he still has backdoors, and he still is pro-Trump, and he's still pushing for Trump, and he's still pushing Russian propaganda. Part of this initiative was to try and suppress the black vote, as well as to test the effectiveness of future Trump campaign slogans. Now all this stuff is going to start making sense to you. Bannon sees cultural warfare as the means to create enduring change in American politics. It was for this reason Bannon engaged SCL, a former military contractor, to build an arsenal of informational weapons he could deploy on the American population. These are all, we're back on Trump file. These are all sourced. Let me just show you. These are all sourced. Yeah, you're mad about Trump file because I think some of you, like MAGA folks, like you're dumb, silly little bitches who don't want to believe anything. But these are all sourced. You can say what you want about Trump file. I've read through every one of these articles. They all have sources. These are direct quotes from people working at Cambridge Analytica. I dare you to find me a better source than direct direct quotes from Cambridge Analytica employees. Wiley also claims to have seen documents referencing these tactics. For example, The Guardian reported Facebook posts were targeted at some black voters, reminding them of Hillary Clinton's 1990s description of black youths as super predators in the hope it would deter them from voting. Raise your hand if you saw your Republican friends on Facebook quoting the super predator. Raise your hand. And this is in 2014. Wiley also explained why Cambridge Analytica was testing messages such as drain the swamp and build the wall in 2014, long before Trump even existed or the Trump campaign existed. Now, Trump thinks he made those up, or he thinks his campaign did. And I believe that Trump thinks that. But you can see here, and you can go read the book. If you go read the book Mindfuck, all of this stuff is laid out in detail of how they did this. They were testing these phrases to see the impact they had on people. And all they needed was a dipshit in financial trouble to get out there and repeat these talking points and do it unapologetically. That's why Steve Bannon loves Trump. Because Trump says whatever they tell him to say, and then he convinces himself it's his own idea, and he never lets it go. He never admits he was wrong. He never backtracks. He just go. That's why all of these Russians like Trump. He's not like them. They're all significantly smarter than he is. Amy Lynn said, R.I.P. Ozzy, you made me cry. You told me lies, but I can't stand to say goodbye. Mama, I'm coming home. Did Ozzy get booted? Vicky said, Jay, I sure miss you and Jen when you're not able to be here keeping us informed. I appreciate you both and the work you do. Tony said, I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'll read some more later. Just a reminder, guys, we are crowdfunded, and I'll update that. But if you can help, this was legitimately like 12 hours of research yesterday, so it's a lot. It's a lot of time. So if you can help knock out our goal, that'd be great. In early 2017, Congress opens an investigation into the ties between Russia, Cambridge Analytica, and the Trump campaign. Obviously, they were working together. It was a good investigation. In May 2018, it's revealed that Russian intelligence had direct access to Cambridge Analytica's data, and that one purpose of the company was to gather information for blackmailing high-profile people. Ask yourself how Lindsey Graham went from pro-Trump to in Trump's asshole. Now start to ask yourself how maybe somebody like Ted Cruz went from a principled conservative anti-Trump, I will never side with him, to I'm in Trump's pocket. Ask yourself how how the entire Republican leadership, who all hated Trump at first, has all fallen in line now. What about Marco Rubio? Give me a better explanation. Because if you tell me that they just like Trump did a great job and they realize that, bullshit. They're smarter than that. They know what Trump's record is. They know what his economic record is. I think that we have an instance here of a lot of people playing the game, and Russia finding their man leading the country and saying, "You will do what he says." Obama responds to Russian sanctions later in that year. I think we're now in 2014. If you remember this, there was the Malaysian Airlines Flight 17, and Russia and its proxies in Ukraine, all Manafort's buddies, they refuse to cooperate. And they take the opportunity to pursue a diplomatic solution to the conflict in Ukraine. These Russian-backed separatists have continued to interfere in the crash investigation and to tamper with the evidence. They've continued to shoot down Ukrainian aircrafts in the region, and because of their actions, scores of Ukrainian civilians continue to die needlessly every day. This is Obama, by the way, if I didn't lay that out. Meanwhile, Russia continues to support the separatists and encourage them and train them and arm them. Satellite images, along with information we've declassified in recent days, shows that forces inside Russia have launched artillery strikes into Ukraine, another major violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. And we have information that Russia continues to build up its own forces near the Ukrainian border, and that more Russian military equipment, including artillery, armored vehicles, and air defense equipment, has been transferred across the border to the separatists. Now, this brings up the argument about Obama being soft on Russia, and that none of this would have happened had Obama not allowed Russia to invade Ukraine. That's fair. If you want to say that, that's fair. But we also then have to point out that the people encouraging this invasion and the people openly working with Russia, Paul Manafort, just happened to then go run Trump's campaign. So you're telling me that the guy who was that was on board with this, that was helping create this problem in Crimea, then just changed all of his politics and came to run Trump's campaign and convinced Trump to be really fucking hard on Russia, to be really hard on Putin? That's hard to believe. I think you're gonna have a hard time selling that. There's more to this. You can go read that. All of this, by the way, is available to you if you're a member of our Discord, which is free. So make sure you join the Discord if you want any of these sources. Mary said, "Okay, let's go. Dollar Train, almost 600 in here. Finish this off, please." Thank you. After the invasion of Crimea, after they've established that base, which they need, and that base that Trump did nothing about and Biden did nothing about, Russia fakes an ISIS terrorist attack in Louisiana on the anniversary of 9/11. This is from the IRA agency. According to social media, clones of mainstream U.S. news sites and even emergency alert texts sent to some Louisiana residents, a chemical plant exploded. The cause? ISIS. The scheme is so strategic that doctored videos of ISIS taking credit for the explosion and security footage of the explosion from a nearby gas station are shared around the internet throughout the day. Do you guys remember this? I definitely remember this. Do I think Paul is running global politics? No, you dumb bitch. No, you dumb bitch. He was running Trump's campaign. And he was working for Vladimir Putin, which is why Trump is a bitch when it comes to Putin. God damn. Do I really have to spell this all out for MAGA? I'm glad I haven't looked at the chat yet. Is it dumb? Is the whole chat this dumb with MAGA today? Understand what words mean. Dozens of journalists, media outlets, and politicians from Louisiana to New York City found their Twitter accounts inundated with messages about the disaster. Heather, I'm sure that the explosion at the Colombian chemicals is really dangerous. Louisiana is really screwed now. A user named Erica Tra PPP tweeted at New Orleans Times reporter Heather Nolan. Another posted a screenshot of CNN's homepage showing that the story had already made national news. ISIS had claimed credit for the attack, according to one YouTube video. In it, a man showed his TV screen, turned to an Arabic news channel on which masked ISIS fighters delivered a speech next to looping footage of an explosion. A woman named Anna McLaren tweeted at Karl Rove, "Karl, is this really ISIS who is responsible for the Colombian chemicals? Tell Obama that we should bomb Iraq," which is fucking... That's Republicans for you. Is this really ISIS? We should bomb Iraq. That's not good. That's not a good equivalency there. But anyone who took the trouble to check CNN.com would have found no news of a spectacular September 11th attack by ISIS. It was all fake. The screenshot, the videos, the photographs. The Colombian chemicals hoax was not some simple prank by a bored sadist. It was a highly coordinated disinformation campaign involving dozens of fake accounts that posted hundreds of tweets for hours, targeting a list of figures precisely chosen to generate maximum attention. Their perpetrators didn't just doctor screenshots from CNN, they also created fully functional clones of the websites of Louisiana TV stations and newspapers. The YouTube video of the man watching TV had been tailor-made for this project. A Wikipedia page was even created for the Colombian chemicals disaster, which cited the fake YouTube video. As the virtual assault unfolded, it was complemented by text messages to actual residents in St. Mary Parish. It must have taken a team of programmers and content producers to pull this off. Why? Why does Russia do this? Why a fake story? Because most people don't ever go back and fact check something, especially if you're not in Louisiana. The emotions that you felt when you watched that, the emotion you felt when you saw that ISIS had taken credit for it, struck fear into your heart. And it made you believe that this administration was doing nothing. And when they refuse to do anything, when they refuse to take any action, it makes you more upset. And even though it turns out to be a hoax, and you go on to what's happening later, even though all of this is a hoax, your body still remembers that. Jen, can you mute real quick? I'm getting feedback. Thanks. You still remember that. Like it's the same as PTSD. It's the same as any trauma response. Your body remembers that response. And they start conditioning you to respond emotionally to fake news. And then it becomes so overwhelming that you forget that almost everything was fake, but you remember the emotions. Your body remembers that. The fight or flight that is triggered when you see stuff like this, that remains. And that's why, like we at the beginning when we showed the debaters over there with Mehdi Hassan, that's why they're so irrationally emotional and they can't articulate a point. Because when you push back, they're like, wait, what the fuck? Have you not been watching this? They say that all the time. One guy said, have you not been watching the last 4 or 5 years? Yeah, we have. We're not watching the same thing. You're watching bullshit, which is why you have an emotional reaction to this. They want you completely controlled by emotions, and they need you to believe that Donald Trump and this administration is your only option, and then they fill this administration with pro-Putin loyalists. That's the game plan. Hey, Jen.
Hey, so just doing some check-ins. I think there were some messages you may have missed, and I hit
Wait, real quick. I just want to point out, Justice The Rock. Come on, bro. Open borders, child sex trafficking, fentanyl killing 100,000 people a year. Come on. Yeah, that's what you're doing. Borders weren't open. Sex trafficking has existed before. It exists now. It's not in higher numbers than it was then. And I don't know about fentanyl killing 100,000 people a year or not. But again, that has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with any of this. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You didn't respond to anything I said. You listed off a bunch of shit that makes you feel icky and makes you feel scared. And that is your trauma response. That is the conditioning that you've been given. Everybody in the chat now that is just listing off things that they think are bad, you're proving my point here, that they just get you hysterical. All right, now go.
Yep. So there's just doing the regular check-in. There's about an hour and 10 minutes left of the show. We've done some pretty good work on the gift goal. It looks like Jay's got some more messages to read. It looks like we've got about 120 to 125 left in the gift goal before we wrap up at 1 o'clock. We do this each day, Monday through Friday, from 9:30 to 1 Pacific time. So like we've mentioned, we are crowdfunded. So Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Super Chats all go towards knocking out that remaining balance of the gift goal. I don't know if you missed this, but Ozzy Osbourne passed away recently, this morning, today. So I know that there's going to be lots of comments about that, just so you know. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed to us already on Twitch, you can use your Amazon Prime sub. On YouTube, we have you can subscribe for free. We also have 4 different memberships that you could use, so you could join us for different member-only events. Check out our link tree. We're on most social media platforms. Cameo, Jay's on Cameo. Cameo, we have merch, and most of these episodes we upload to Spotify. And so, so if you guys help knock out the rest of that gift goal, that'd be awesome. Why do zombies not care about your looks?
I don't know.
Yeah, this came from B-Tang, by the way. They're only interested in your brain.
Han said, look into Maria Butina. She's the Russian spy that was hanging out with the GOP back in 2017. It's all connected. I did. I don't think she plays like a significant role, but yeah, that's absolutely connected to. Christina said, I'm a retired teacher and I wish I could give more. Thank you, Christina. Danielle said, thanks for all you do. Also, football's almost here. Go Bills. Fuck the Bills. Just kidding. I like Josh Allen. I'm sorry for saying that. Alyssa, thank you for the donation. I read that one. Let me get these ones real quick. Judith said, could someone do something to prevent TFG coming to Scotland, please? I need to listen to this again to work out all the Russian connections. Or you can also go to Trump File. Like they lay it out. Their narrative isn't like, you kind of have to follow it your own. If you need somebody to like set the narrative, Trump File might not be the best place. But if you want access to this information, Trump File is incredible. Their list of resources is crazy. Denise said, choo choo knowledge train. Kelly said, dollar train, great work. And Amanda said, $2 train. Fuck ICE, fuck Trump. I agreed with that. Fuck ICE. And then I know some came through. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Sully, because Jen said so. Red Fox, 2 months. Thanks, my friend. All right. Let's go here. I'm going to bring in another person you may recognize from the Trump team, Steve Mnuchin. This is from 2015. In late 2015, exact date unknown, the Office of Terrorist Financing and Financial Crimes, a unit of the U.S. Treasury Department, makes an agreement with Russia to share information on financial institutions in the Middle East. The agreement, called the ISIL Project, is intended to investigate how ISIS is being financed. Instead, Russia pushes Treasury officials into sharing the financial information of their enemies in the United States and across the globe, including at least 24 dissidents, academics, private investigators, and American citizens. Over the next year, Treasury officials send information to Gmail and Hotmail accounts set up by Russia. Now, this part's interesting because this clearly shows that by 2015, Russia had loyalists inside of our Treasury Department, people who were willing to send emails to non-secure accounts for Russia, and they were working inside of our Treasury Department. And this is some of the warnings that like the Obama administration had come up with. Remember, Michael Flynn also worked in the Obama administration, and they got rid of Michael Flynn because they believed that he was loyal to Russia. They were finding all of these loyalists. The information Russia requests and receives focuses on executives from prominent American Jewish groups. Billionaire investors they believe have financial ties to Hillary Clinton and Kremlin opponents living abroad, among others. The breach of protocol was picked up in 2016 by another unit of the Treasury, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, but despite FinCEN's warnings, there was never a serious investigation. The backdoor communications and record sharing with Russia continued until at least early 2017. And then who does Trump tap? He taps Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin does nothing. After 2017, Steve Mnuchin comes in, a billionaire with financial ties to Russia, and he does absolutely nothing. They just stop investigating that. Why? Why would they stop investigating Russian plants in our government, in the Treasury Department? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they continue that investigation? We have people inside of in the Treasury Department handing off money on unsecured emails to Russia, and we just stop investigating it as soon as Trump gets into office? That's bizarre, right? Now we get to the campaign. Russia reaches out to Michael Cohen, who at the time was Donald Trump's lawyer, in 2015. In or around November, a Russian national reaches out to Michael Cohen to try and arrange a meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin. Cohen says that he received the contact information for and spoke with a Russian national who claimed to be a trusted person in the Russian Federation who could help offer the campaign political synergy and synergy on a government level. The defendant recalled that this person repeatedly proposed a meeting between Trump and the president of Russia. Individual one it's listed as individual one because at the time Trump was the president when he gave this testimony. And this is just a reminder that Trump was co-conspirator with Michael Cohen while Michael Cohen was being investigated, and Michael Cohen went to jail. And his co-conspirator, the guy he did it with, was Trump, who couldn't be identified as Trump because he was the sitting president. And Bill Barr said you have to refer to him as individual one. The person told Cohen that such a meeting could have had phenomenal impact, not only in political, but in business dimension as well, referring to the Moscow Project, because there is no bigger warranty in any project than the consent of the president of Russia. Cohen, however, did not follow up on this invitation. Oh, good. Trump's lawyer said, we're not going to work with Russia. Wrong. The defendant explained that he did not pursue the proposed meeting, which did not take place in part because he was working on the Moscow Project already with a different individual who Cohen understood to have his own connections to the Russian government. It was close. Oh, he's not. I'm not going to do the deal with you because I'm already doing this deal with somebody else. And now I want you to meet Michael Caputo. This is going to come in handy. Michael Caputo is going to be a name that keeps coming up. Sometime in '94, Michael Caputo, a former Reagan and Bush advisor, moved to Russia as part of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and becomes an advisor to the president, Boris Yeltsin. Shortly after moving to Russia, Caputo becomes the president of the Florence Group, with which he, as he says, played a pivotal role in electing Boris Yeltsin to his second term as president to Russia in '96. I just wanted you to know that's how Caputo wound up in Russia, but his name will come up again. As an advisor to Yeltsin, let me pull this up. As an advisor to Yeltsin, Caputo found a more interesting role, as in America, nobody was trying to kill each other enough. We needed more people trying to kill each other. Caputo worked for the United States USAID as an advisor to the Yeltsin administration in '95. It was in Russia that he got the scar on his right ankle from a run-in, he says, with a drunken political operative. When he returned to the United States in '99, he found the American political scene too boring. In Russia, the fascists want to kill you, the communists want to starve you, and the Democrats want to pick your pocket for a while. I got back to the United States and I realized that the only difference between John Kerry and George Bush was a degree of tax cut. When you have a leader like Putin, and when you have an authoritarian government, you need divide. You need people who are constantly arguing with each other, so you can use the full weight of the government to protect some people, and that makes them more loyal to you, and it makes those who are on the fence say, uh-oh, if I side with this side, the government's going to come after me, and you're more likely to then convert them over to your side using force. This is literally Andrew Wilson's entire principle. This is what force principle is from Andrew Wilson. He's talking about this. He's talking about the only real way to have a country that is peaceful is by threat of the government and by using force to squash anything that you don't like. And so when Caputo got back to the United States, he's like, fuck, how come nobody's fighting over here? Gerald said, how often do you have your wife do the show? Do you and your wife do the show? That's not even good shit talk. Jen's not my wife or girlfriend, but that's bad shit talk. That's so stupid. Thank you for the $2, though. Danny, thank you for joining the Dollar Train, as well as Megan. And Robin said, because Jen said so. I agree with that. Work on your shit talk. Yeah, remember what I told you earlier today? Like, these conservatives, these like neckbeard incel fascists are all dog shit at talking shit. This same Caputo guy, knowing what we know about Caputo, knowing that he went from the United States to Russia, worked for Boris Yeltsin, came back, said everything's too calm here. Naturally, we decided to bring him in to the Trump campaign as a senior advisors. After previously working for Reagan and Bush and obviously Yeltsin, in 2012, Caputo also admitted, seemingly by accident, to have worked for the Kremlin directly. Now, he's going to deny this, but this is a Twitter interaction that he had in 2012, responding to Big Irv McCracken. He said, Michael Caputo, I did see the photos of him masked, FSB now being held in Gulag. Bottom line, don't cross Putin or espouse the West. Caputo said he's been very vocal. Now he's silenced in Lefortovo prison. Been there, pretty scary facility. If you don't want to answer over the air, I understand as observer, dissident, or liberator. Caputo said, I worked for the Kremlin at the time. The visit was not obligatory. I don't remember who they're talking about here, but this is him admitting that he worked for the Kremlin. He's going to later deny that when the Mueller investigation happens. In Tulsi's report, Tulsi keeps saying that. Let me make sure this is right. Yeah, this is the report. So the report that Tulsi keeps mentioning, the IC report that Obama commissioned, one thing she keeps leaving out, and I wonder why, is that according to that report, a journalist who is a leading expert on the IRA agency claimed that some social media accounts that appear to be tied to Russia's professional trolls, because they previously were devoted to supporting Russian actions in Ukraine, started in 2015 to advocate for President-elect Trump. I guess he wasn't president-elect then. In 2015, they started advocating for him. So the same accounts, which we know are tied to Paul Manafort, And the same accounts that are tied to Steve Bannon are now being used as from the IRA to support Donald Trump. That's part of why Obama was looking at, like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why are all these pro-Russian accounts that we were tracking, why are they all of a sudden now just active and supporting Donald Trump? She leaves that part out. DNC consultant Alexandra Chalupa warned Obama about Paul Manafort and warned the intelligence community about Paul Manafort. Sometime in January, an outreach consultant for the Democratic National Committee warns the DNC that if her suspicion of Russian influence in the Trump campaign are true, they'll be hearing the name Paul Manafort soon. This is before Paul Manafort is part of the campaign. This is January 15th of 2016. Alexandra Chalupa was researching the Ukrainian crisis for a client when she first heard about Paul Manafort and his involvement in the events in Ukraine, including ties to the Russian oligarchs that funded his boss's political takeover. In 2015, she began to notice similarities for her research within the Trump campaign. In her free time, she started researching Trump's ties to Russia. While she wasn't sharing her research or her contacts with the DNC, she occasionally mentioned things that felt concerning. And that brings us to January 2016. Chalupa told a senior DNC official that when it came to Trump's campaign, I felt there was a Russia connection, and that if there was, that we can expect Paul Manafort to be involved in this election. At the time, she was also warning leaders in the Ukrainian American community that Manafort was Putin's political brain for manipulating U.S. foreign policy and elections. 2 months later, Paul Manafort officially joins the Trump campaign. Isn't that ironic that, like, their research into Russia working to try and divide Ukraine and stage an uprising, that the guy that was behind that, the American side that was behind that, would then work for Trump? How did Trump's can you guys remind me how Trump's term ended? Did it end in a revolt, in a violent uprising? Oh, it did? Interesting. Russia's IRC then releases their entire troll army on Hillary Clinton. This is February of 2016, as the election's kicking up. The IRA, after spending, and that's the Internet Research Agency, that's the propaganda arm in Russia, after spending thousands of dollars a month on political ads in 2015, gives staff an outline of content to share to the agency's troll accounts. The content focuses on using any opportunity to criticize Hillary and the rest except Sanders and Trump. We support them. Those accounts now have hundreds of thousands of followers. Now, you can speculate on why they would like Bernie Sanders, but my reading of this is that the reason they supported Bernie Sanders is because it made Hillary look even more corrupt. He wasn't a real threat to them, but if you promoted Bernie Sanders, it showed like the corruption of Hillary and the DNC and the way that they mistreated Bernie Sanders and used superdelegates to keep him from getting the nomination. That's my reading of it. I haven't found anybody that says specifically why they chose to support Bernie Sanders. Then Russia starts sending out phishing emails to the Clinton campaign. Before the sun comes up, email accounts belonging to people who work with or have worked with the Hillary Clinton campaign are hit with 29 phishing attempts from Russian hackers in March of 2016. More attacks are made on March 11th, 19th, 22nd, 23rd, and 25th, and throughout the coming months. Most of the emails find their way to the inboxes of staffers from Clinton's first presidential campaign, except one. The hackers gain access to campaign documents. Over the next few months, the hackers try to compromise more of Clinton's inner circle and over 130 Democratic Party employees, supporters, and contractors. In 2017, the perpetrators are believed to be a group of hackers known as Fancy Bear, who are working with the Russian government. Months later, the Mueller probe identifies the hackers as members of Russia's military intelligence organization, GRU, and they are actually indicted. Now, remember, the Trump campaign, and we'll cover some of this in a minute, Trump was openly talking about how Russians needed to give over Hillary's documents. Trump was aware that somehow Russian hackers had got Hillary's emails, and he was campaigning openly for them to continue to do it and to send them to him. Jared Kushner then attends a lunch that same month, and here's where all the connections start happening. This is March 14th in 2016. Jared Kushner attends a small lunch event organized by the Center for National Interests, the conservative DC think tank ran by Russian agent Dmitry Sines. Just more Russians in the Conservative Party. At the event, CNI honorary chairman and Nixon National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger talks to the attendees about how to approach U.S.-Russia relations. CNI was established by Nixon, but his family cut ties with the organization and Symes in 2011 because of his preference for Russia and his relationship with Vladimir Putin. Dmitry Symes has been designated by our government as a Russian agent. And here he is hosting an event for the Center for National Interest. Ironically, the Center for National Interest is hearing from a Russian plant. The center, and particularly its longtime president, Dmitry Symes, had become nothing less than an embarrassment to the Nixon family names. Symes, an imposing eminence of Russia policy, was, in their view, offering apologies for Russian autocrat Vladimir Putin and even attacking their party's presidential candidate, John McCain, for his denunciations of Russia's invasion of Georgia. That's what we're protecting? How dare John McCain bring up that Russia keeps invading other countries? A month later, Symes and CNN host a foreign policy event for who? Donald Trump, where he and others close to him meet Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. There's that name again. Symes is later accused of being one of Trump's Kremlin handlers. In July 2017, Kushner releases a statement to Congress about his relationship with Symes, who he claims he barely knew. Kushner leaves out the events of his first meeting with the Russian agent and that they met again in his office a few weeks later. This starts the constant flood of Donald Trump and the Trump associates meeting with Russians and then lying about it. And here's the return of Carter Page, the boogeyman, who bragged about working for the Kremlin. But once Mueller came around, he was just a businessman who just happened to work with Russian oligarchs. Trump meets with the Washington Post advisory board and details his list of campaign advisors so far. On that list is this man who Trump claims he didn't know. I barely met him. Carter Page, who's that? He's on the list. He's on the list of his campaign advisors so far. This is March 2016. He hasn't even secured a nomination. In the months that follow, Page meets with Russian officials at least 3 times during and after the campaign. He tries to cover it up. The FBI identifies him as a likely Russian agent. However, in later years, Mueller is unable to prove Page was knowingly involved in Russia's influence efforts. Again, proving that incredibly difficult. When Page becomes the subject of an FBI investigation during the campaign, Trump officials claim he was never on the campaign. Despite this, Trump's team spends years using the Page investigation as some sort of proof that the Trump-Russia story is a deep state fabrication. So remember that when Tulsi starts talking about Carter Page. Donald Trump, earlier in the year, has a list of campaign advisors so far, and Carter Page is on that document. And then he meets with Russian officials 3 times. 3 different times. So at some point, this was a somebody in the Trump campaign. None of us were on that. None of you folks were on that, right? I'd imagine your names weren't on there. Then Trump finally confirms that everybody's greatest fear, Paul Manafort, is indeed working for the campaign. When he meets with the Post, that same meeting, wait, did I put the same fucking? Damn it, I put the wrong link in there. All right, same meeting, he confirms that Paul Manafort works for the campaign, despite obviously being a Russian plant. Robert Forsman now is going to come into the picture. Let me show you who Robert Forsman is. Robert Forsman, he's introduced to Trump through Mark Burnett. Mark Burnett's the one that produced The Apprentice. He's produced, I didn't know this, he did Temptation Island. He did like some crazy reality TV in the 2000s. But Robert Forsman emails the Trump assistant Rona Graff, telling her that he set up a secret communications channel between George W. Bush and Vladimir Putin, and he could do the same thing for Donald Trump. Forsman also says that senior Kremlin officials would like a meeting with the Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski to discuss topics that shouldn't be mentioned over email. He later tells the FBI that he contacted the Trump campaign under orders from Anton Kobayakov, who is an advisor to Putin. Mark Burnett, the creator and producer of The Apprentice, introduced Forsman to Graff on a phone call earlier in that day. Burnett has regularly been in contact with Putin since around 2001. Forsman is the head of Russian operations at Barclays, a bank headquartered in London. He spent much of his career living in Russia and Ukraine, but moves to New York in October of 2016. And in January of 2017, Forsman passes a document from his Russian counterparts to Michael Flynn. The document is intended for the Trump transition team. This is part of what Michael Flynn gets in trouble for lying about taking these documents and passing them along to Trump. He claims that just never happened. The IRC then, at this time, against spring of 2016, the election's in full swing, the Internet Research Agency in Russia starts running ads promoting Trump. Beginning in April, Russia's IRC purchases ads on social media condemning Hillary Clinton and supporting Donald Trump. Some of the ads target black voters. Once again, if you recall back to what Cambridge Analytica was doing, these are the test runs that Cambridge Analytica was doing. These are the test runs that the IRA was doing. And now they're both working in unison to run these ads because they know they work. Here's just a few of the ads. April 6th, social media ad purchased by the agency. You know, a great number of black people support us saying that hashtag Hillary Clinton is not my president. The indictment includes several other such ads scattered over the course of 2016. April 7th, ad, I say no to Hillary Clinton. I say no to manipulation. April 19th, join our hashtag Hillary Clinton for prison 2016. May 10th, Donald wants to defeat terrorism. Hillary wants to sponsor it. May 19th, vote Republican, vote Trump, and support the Second Amendment. May 24th, ad, Hillary Clinton doesn't deserve the black vote. All these ads that you're seeing, many of them funded by Russia. Why is Russia so opposed to Hillary Clinton? From what I can find, I can't find much connection between Hillary Clinton and Russia. Do I believe Hillary Clinton it could be corrupt? Certainly. Likely? Sure. But not by Russia. Russia clearly didn't feel like they could manipulate Hillary Clinton for whatever reason. And they had one horse, and that horse was Donald Trump. Then Putin allies reach out to a Republican congressman named Dana Rohrabacher. Sometime in April of 2016, Rohrabacher and his staffer Paul Behrens separate from a group of other House members in Moscow to meet with Vladimir Yakunin, the former president of Russian Railways, and then president of the Dialogue of Civilizations organization in Berlin. The meeting's arranged by Sergei Kislyak. There's that name again. According to Rohrabacher, Yakunin wanted to discuss his DOC organization and the Magnitsky Act. I've talked about the Magnitsky Act a bunch. Magnitsky was a lawyer for an American dual citizen of America and England named Bill Browder. And Bill Browder was investing in Russia, and he exposed some of the corruption, and Russians wound up jailing his attorney, Sergei Magnitsky, and they wound up killing him in prison. Browder went on the run. Putin put out a red notice demanding that anybody who sees Bill Browder has to send him back to Russia. They got in contact with John McCain. John McCain lobbied other members of Congress. They created the Magnitsky Act, which basically said, among other things, that Russia's not allowed to do red notices. We're not going to comply with a Russian red notice because they act in bad faith. They're murdering people for exposing their corruption, so we're not going to do that. So Yakunin wanted to discuss this with Rohrabacher, who was a Republican in Congress, and Yakunin said, look, our prosecutors have done an investigation into this Magnitsky thing, and were you willing to look at the material, their report? And I said, sure, I'll look at any report. I'll talk to anybody, and I'll read anything. And he said, well, they're trying to get it to you at that meeting you're going to have tomorrow with the Duma Foreign Affairs Committee. In an investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election, the Senate concludes that Yakunin is a close confidant of Putin and is heavily involved in Russia's influence activities in global elections. Makes sense, then, that Yakunin relocated to Germany as the country is a current target of Russian infiltration. At another meeting the following day, this one attended by every House member on the trip, the congressman meets with Konstantin Kozachev, a Kremlin official that the Senate identifies as significantly involved in Russian influence activities, including those targeting the United States. At the end of the meeting, Kosachev passes Rohrabacher a note and asks if he is willing to receive sensitive documents, and Rohrabacher agrees. There's the quote. You can read it if you want to go back and check this. According to the documents obtained by the Senate Select Committee, the folder's primary documents refer to allegations about the Magnitsky Act. According to the Daily Beast, it lays out an alternate reality in which the United States and the rest of the world has been duped by a fake $230 million scandal that resulted in sanctions being imposed on 44 Russians linked to murder, corruption, and cover-ups. Russian attorney Natalia Veselnitskaya will carry a similar document with her when she meets with the Trump campaign in June. And remember, the meeting in Trump Tower was about Bill Browder. It was about the Magnitsky Act. They don't like the sanctions that were placed on Russia, and they're trying to get the U.S. to get rid of those sanctions by saying, oh, we didn't really murder anybody. This is all just one big misunderstanding. And now we get to meet George Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos, who I incorrectly identified as Carter Page earlier, George Papadopoulos, a campaign advisor, meets with a Russian nationalist in London who tells him that the Kremlin has thousands of emails with dirt on Hillary Clinton. They have dirt on her, Papadopoulos said he was told. They have thousands of emails. In 2017, when the FBI questions Papadopoulos about meeting Russian officials, he tells them that any contacts he's had with Russians took place before he joined the Trump campaign, which turns out to be a lie. And he winds up lying about it and getting caught and going to prison for 12 days. The Trump campaign knew about and encouraged his communication with Russia. When Papadopoulos told one campaign official about his early attempts to work with the professor and the Russian woman to orchestrate a meeting, the supervisor told him in an email, "Great work." The campaign supervisor also encouraged him to take an off-the-record meeting with Russian officials if it is feasible, according to the emails. A second campaign official at one point said Trump himself shouldn't take any trip to meet with the Russians. Instead, it should be someone low-level in the campaign so as not to send any signal. So are these people that are working in the Trump campaign, why are they covering this up? If they're not working with Russia, if they're not trying to work with Russia, what's the point of the cover-up here? What's the point in telling them to do this all under wraps? Why not just have Trump meet with them? If there's no problem here, why now the Trump campaign in these emails is covering this up? Remember, this is the thing that they've told you is a hoax the whole time, that there were no connections. We're 2.5 hours in. This is all a hoax, right? Let me give this then. Then Trump gives his very first policy speech. And who does he surround himself for his first policy speech? He goes to the Mayflower Hotel, hosted by the Center for National Interest. Remember, we just talked about them? The Center for National Interest, absolutely funded by the Russians and Sergei Kislyak. There he meets Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, Jared Kushner, Jeff Sessions, Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, and Carter Page are also at the event. The Center for National Interest, previously the Nixon Center, is headed by Dimitri Simes, basically universally agreed upon that is like the handler of Donald Trump for Russia, meaning that like he has a close enough relationship with Trump that Russia can feed things through Dimitri Simes to Trump, who's operating as an unofficial foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. He's also a Kremlin asset like Trump. And he met with Vladimir Putin as recently as 2 months before this event. Putin has publicly called Simes his American friend and colleague. Yuri Shvets told me that when he was still in the KGB, he crossed paths with Simes at the press center in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Moscow and wanted to recruit him on the spot. I saw Simes and he was always lonely, said Shvets. He's always looking like, who can we get? We got to get these Americans. Americans didn't talk to him. Soviets didn't talk to him. Shvets discussed the matter with his superior, who wanted to check it out with headquarters. And the next day he calls me saying, stand down. He's being taken care of. Translation, there was no need to recruit Simes because he was already a contact of the KGB. They were already way ahead of him. He had already been cultivated at this point. So Trump goes and it does his foreign policy speech, his very first foreign policy speech, surrounded by Russians. There was actually a part down here I wanted to cover. I'm pretty sure. Let me make sure. During the speech, this was it, yeah. Trump advocates for aligning our overseas... Where did it go? There it is. During the speech, Trump advocates for aligning our overseas troops with Russia's to combat terrorism in Syria, for example. The average American doesn't understand that Russia is prone to aiding Islamic terrorism in places like Syria, not combating it. Trump said in his speech, I believe in easing of tensions and improved relations with Russia from a position of strength only as possible, absolutely possible. It's hard to read Trump's writings because he's an idiot. Common sense says this horrible cycle of hostility must end and ideally will end soon. Good for both countries. The speech was co-written by Richard Burt, a member of the advisory boards for both the Council of the National Interest and Russia's Alpha Bank. He was enlisted to join the Trump campaign by who? Paul Manafort. Simes is also believed to have helped to draft the speech, but it's unclear that if that has been proven. So we got a Russian here that's on the advisory board writing the speech with Paul Manafort, who is a Russian plant, with allegedly Simes. The event was originally scheduled to be given at the National Press Club. It's unclear why the location changed, but could possibly be to making this meeting possible. This is also one of many interactions between Jeff Sessions and Dimitri Simes, which led to Jeff Sessions recusing himself from the Mueller investigation, saying that he had conflicts. Then you have publicist Rob Goldstone, sets up a meeting with Amin Galarov, who's a Russian pop star, about providing Hillary dirt, which then led to a phone call. I won't get too much into that, but all you need to know is the Russians reached out to Don Jr. about giving him dirt for the Hillary campaign. He said, I'll call you later. They called later. Basically, they decided later in the summer they would meet and they would talk about the Hillary emails. So just know that like this is in the spring. Later in the summer, they're going to actually have this meeting. Then Putin, during this time, goes and meets with Netanyahu, which I found ironic. After meeting with Netanyahu, he says they're conditional allies. He said, we spoke about the necessity to pool efforts to counter international terrorism. Israel knows only too well what it means, and it is fighting against terrorism. In this sense, we are unconditional allies, said Putin. This really isn't a surprise. When Russia sent mafia members into the United States, they had to send their worst by way of Israel so they could obtain passports. Israel had to help them. Israel served as a kind of forward base for Russian organized crime and the Russian oligarchy, and it's a blurry line between these groups and the KGB and its successor agency. Israel became a kind of staging post for corrupt Russian interests on their way westward. I should note, by the way, that many of the people in leadership for Israel have come from former USSR countries. Many of them loyalists to the Russians. They have infiltrated Israel as well. It's what they do. They're really good at it. Goldstone, the publicist that had emailed Trump, then arranges a Trump Tower meeting with Trump's approval. Here's the evidence we have there. Amin Agalarov asked that I schedule a meeting with you and the Russian government attorney who is flying over from Moscow for this Thursday. I believe you are aware of the meeting and so wondered if 3 p.m. or later on Thursday works for you. At some point, Cohen informs Trump of the meeting and Trump approves of it. Now, Trump will lie about this later and say that he did not know about the meeting and that he didn't approve it. Later that evening, Trump wins the primaries in 5 states, guarantees himself the Republican nomination. During his victory speech, he promotes dirt on Hillary Clinton. And this is the part that I cannot believe. This should have been the end forever. Once this broke, that there was a meeting that day, and the meeting that day was to give Don Jr. dirt on Hillary Clinton. And Trump approves of this meeting, knows this meeting's happening. Obviously, the meeting happens earlier in the day. At that point, Don Jr. and Donald Trump have obviously spoken. Donald Trump Jr. is there when they announce the victory. And Trump goes on stage and says this: I'm going to give a major speech on probably Monday of next week. And we're going to be discussing all of the things that have taken place with the Clintons. I think you're going to find it very informative and very, very interesting. How the fuck are we supposed to take this any other way? The meeting happens that day with promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. Trump wins, and in his victory speech just happens to bring that up. Guess what happened on Monday? Nothing. They didn't announce it. You know why? The Russians didn't have dirt. They lied. They didn't have anything that could be confirmed. They just lied to get this meeting. And the whole point of getting this meeting is to gain influence to try and undo the sanctions that were placed on Russian oligarchs because they murdered Sergei Magnitsky. They wanted the Magnitsky Act undone, and they were trying to incentivize, cut a deal where we'll give you dirt if you promise to undo this, and they never provided the dirt. So Monday came and went, and everybody just kind of forgot about this. But the reason it was announced is because this meeting happened. Now, a few weeks later, people were made aware of this meeting, and again, Trump came out and denied the meeting happened. Then he admitted the meeting happened, but he denied he knew about it. Then he admitted that he knew about it. Then they wrote out a statement, and it sounded like Trump, and Trump said, I didn't know anything about the statement, and then it turns out he was there also when they wrote the statement. Thanks in part to the testimony of Michael Cohen. But no, where's my MAGA? Explain this, please, MAGA. Explain to me how Donald Trump is announcing that he's going to give dirt on the Clintons after meeting with Russian assets, and then also says, I don't work with the Russian assets. We don't know what the dirt was. That's a good question, Chris. Steele dossier dirt? Could be. I mean, the Steele dossier at this point, I think the Steele dossier was still in the control. I mean, the Steele dossier wasn't the Steele dossier. So it started off as research from Fusion GPS, who was doing research for the Republican Party. So most of the Steele dossier was research done by the Republicans. At this point, now that Trump gets the nomination, they're going to drop this. So I don't know what was included. I don't know what Fusion had on Trump. And then eventually, so potentially some of the stuff from the Steele dossier could have been dirt on Hillary Clinton. I don't know. We never saw it. It never came up. But Trump sure as shit said it was going to come up. And does it not bother any of you that he said this and never followed through on it, and also denied that he was getting dirt from the Russians? Give me another reason why this quote would happen on the same day. Why would he announce a meeting on a press release on Monday if he didn't have any information, or he didn't expect he was going to have information? It's pretty fucking damning, and this is where it all gets damning. DNC then announces right after that their server was hacked. June 14th, DNC publicly announces that their emails and servers have been hacked by Russian state-backed actors. Upon finding out about the DNC hack, Paul Manafort advises Trump and the campaign to blame Ukraine. That's what Paul Manafort does. That's what he did for Russia in Ukraine. He blamed Ukraine. That's what they did with the Malaysian flight. Blame Ukraine. Paul Manafort does the same shit he's been doing for Russia. Just blame Ukraine. In an April 2018 interview with the special counsel's office, Rick Gates, who had served as deputy Trump campaign chair and had long been Paul Manafort's right hand, told investigators that after the campaign learned the DNC had been hacked, Manafort pushed the theory that Ukraine, not Russia, had orchestrated the attack. Not a Russian plant, though, right? It's just exactly what he did in Ukraine. Just the exact same thing he did in Ukraine, and now he's running Trump's campaign here. GOP leaders, multiple GOP leaders then, are recorded talking about Putin paying Donald Trump in a conversation that took place June 15th, where these Republicans assume they're having a private conversation. Kevin McCarthy tells Steve Scalise, Paul Ryan, and Kathy Rogers that he is certain Vladimir Putin pays Donald Trump and Dana Rohrabacher. Remember, Dana Rohrabacher is the one who was being they were funneling documents through Rohrabacher to get to Trump so they could undo the sanctions on the Magnitsky Act. The four talk about how Putin turned Ukraine against itself with the help of Paul Manafort, and about Russia starting a propaganda war in the U.S. with the help of Steve Bannon, who also at this point is a campaign advisor. Then they agree not to tell anyone what they've talked about. However, a recording of the conversation leaks in 2017. Here's how it goes. Paul Ryan, Russia is trying to turn Ukraine against itself. Rogers, yes, and it's sophisticated and it's maniacal. Yes. And guess who's the only one taking a strong stand up against it? We are. We're not. But we're not. McCarthy, I'll guarantee you that's what this is. The Russians hacked the DNC and got the opposition research they had on Trump. Ryan, the Russians hacked the DNC, McHenry, to get Oppo, Ryan, on Trump and delivered it to who? McCarthy. There's two people I think Putin pays, Rohrabacher and Trump. Swear to God, Ryan, this is an off the record, no leaks, all right? This is how we know we're a real family here. Scalise, that's how you know that we're tight. Ryan, what's said in the family stays in the family. I think Kevin McCarthy wasn't in the family. When Ryan's team is made aware that the Washington Post knows about the meeting, they strongly deny such a meeting ever took place. The story changes after the Post adds that they have a recording, to which Ryan's spokesman responds, we were just joking. It was just an attempt at humor. Look how afraid they were that Donald Trump would find out they said he was being paid. Guess who's here for the third time today? That guy who doesn't matter, Carter Page. House GOP leaders are recorded talking about Putin. Wait, what the fuck? Did I do that again? God damn it. All right, I'll have to find it later. I'm so bad at this. All right, we're going to go to Manafort. Manafort then offers updates to the Russian to a Russian oligarch and banned in the United States Oleg Deripaska. Acting campaign manager and former Kremlin employee Paul Manafort sends an email to a contact in Russia asking the contact to pass along a message to Deripaska. The message: if he needs private briefings, we can accommodate. Is the Trump campaign manager telling a Russian oligarch, if he needs private briefings, we can accommodate. And this isn't hearsay. We have these emails. This exchange is part of a massive collection of Manafort emails obtained by Mueller's team in the Russian investigation. This isn't made up. This is an email that we're reading to a Russian oligarch. Deripaska in 2016 is the president of a Russian energy company and heads the second largest aluminum company in the world. Before the 2007-2008 financial crisis, he was the richest man in Russia. He is still a billionaire. Deripaska obtained a U.S. visa in 2005 by paying $260,000 to Bob Dole's law firm in exchange for the firm lobbying on his behalf. His visa was revoked in 2006 when law enforcement found reason to suspect he was intending to invest in U.S. properties for money laundering. Oh, no shit. No shit. All these Russians are trying to cultivate assets by finding rich real estate tycoons like Trump and investing in their real estate. That's crazy. In 2010, the Financial Times reports that Russian mafias have financial ties to Deripaska businesses. Later, reports claim that Manafort owes Deripaska around $19 million. The campaign manager of Donald Trump's campaign owes a Russian oligarch $19 million and is reaching out to him saying, we can communicate. Let's create a back channel here. We'll communicate. I'll give you briefings. Providing private Trump campaign updates to Deripaska would act as his repayment. You can go see the emails. I'm not doing all this work for you guys. You can go do them. You can go find all the Mueller investigation emails. They're public. Spokesperson for both Manafort and Deripaska have insisted that the private briefings never actually materialized. But if he did offer privileged campaign information in exchange for debt cancellation, Olson said that would have raised several red flags for U.S. intelligence officials. So he's like, yeah, I did send the email. We did talk about it, but I never did give him any information, which would be impossible to track if it was in person, right? First, of course, is his willingness to disclose confidential information for personal gain, he said. Second, and of more concern, is debt cancellation is much harder to track than payment. Payments leave a paper trail. Debt forgiveness is not. It's a very effective way to conceal transfer of value and is another CI flag. So Trump's campaign manager just saying, hey, dude, I know I owe you money from a bad deal. Let me just feed you information. I'll just feed you information. Is that cool? Will that work? He's like, yeah, that'll work. Oh, we never did. We never did do that. Then you have Manafort again and Rick Gates, his right-hand man, sharing campaign data with Russian intelligence. On or around August 2nd, Paul Manafort and Rick Gates meet with Russian intelligence agent Konstantin Kilimnik at a cigar club in Manhattan. There they give Kilimnik the Trump campaign's internal polling data and discuss campaign strategies for battleground states. According to the Mueller report, the passing of internal campaign data to Kilimnik began months ago. This would place the collusion sometime between March 1st, about the time Manafort began contact with the campaign, and the first week of June. On August 2nd, they also discussed the status of Trump campaign and Manafort's strategy for winning Democratic votes in Midwestern states. Months before that meeting, Manafort had caused internal polling data to be shared with Kilimnik, and the sharing continued for some period of time after their August meeting. Manafort expected Kilimnik to share that information with others in Ukraine and with Deripaska. Gates periodically sent such polling data to Kilimnik during the campaign. That's according to the Mueller report. And by the way, for anybody that's any of you conservatives here, MAGA Republicans that don't think this is all made up because it's the Mueller report, please remember that Paul Manafort pled guilty. Paul Manafort was indicted and then he pled guilty. So please don't think that this is just something that people accused him of that never materialized. The Mueller report had him dead to rights and he pled guilty. The Mueller report does not identify Kilimnik as a Russian intelligence agent, but a 2020 Senate intelligence report does. In 2021, the Biden administration backs up the Senate subcommittee findings. During the 2016 U.S. presidential election, Kilimnik provided the Russian intelligence services with information on polling and campaign strategies. Additionally, Kilimnik sought to promote the narrative that Ukraine, not Russia, had interfered in the election. In 2018, Kilimnik was indicted on charges of obstruction of justice and conspiracy to obstruct justice regarding unregistered lobbying work. Kilimnik has also sought to assist designated former president of Ukraine, Yanukovych. At Yanukovych's direction, Kilimnik sought to institute a plan that would return Yanukovych to power in Ukraine. Manafort and Gates were associates before they came to Trump's campaign. They worked together before. During the campaign, he serves as Manafort's deputy. He continues to work for the Trump campaign, now under Steve Bannon, when Manafort is forced to resign. He's also Kilimnik's a longtime associate of Paul Manafort, worked with him on pro-Russia lobbying efforts in Ukraine, which we've discussed. 2017 report from the Washington Post refers to Kilimnik as a Kiev best employee of the Manafort's international political consulting practice. Sounds to me like Paul Manafort got in over his head and found a fucking idiot to hire him to run his campaign, and he did it. The former CIA director does come out. We're running out of time. Comes out and says that Trump is an unwitting agent of the Russian Federation. I agree with that. That I don't think Trump necessarily knew that he was their asset. Trump then goes out and publicly asks for support from Russia in the debate with Hillary, where he says, Russia, if you're listening, where are those emails? That is highly illegal. When you're running for a campaign, you cannot solicit the help of a foreign government to help you win an election. Obviously, Manafort's doing it. Obviously, people behind the scenes are doing it for Trump. But he was dumb enough to actually do that on stage, and we were dumb enough to believe that MAGA had any sort of principles whatsoever. So it wound up, because he won, nothing happened. Then the FBI opens the FISA warrant on Carter Page. That's the fourth time now he's in this story. And after that, Carter Page is back in Russia 2 months later, still claiming to be working with the Trump campaign. On January 6th, the report that Tulsi referred to at the beginning, let me go back. This is the report she's talking about. Remember, this is all just in response to Tulsi calling this a hoax. We're talking, nope, that's not it. We're talking about this. Tulsi is referring to this report that was done secretly, that is not done secretly because we have access to it. But again, this is the report she's talking about. According to that report on Russia's interference in the 2016 election, the highlighted in the report is that Putin ordered an influence campaign aimed at the election with goals of undermining faith in our democratic system and damaging the electability of Hillary Clinton. Mission accomplished. Republicans no longer believe that our elections are free and fair. Russia's campaign blended cyber operations with influence strategies involving state news media, intelligence agents, Russian officials, and paid social media users to act as trolls, which I'll get to here in a minute. Cyber operations were targeted both political parties. Russia's military intelligence used online persona Guccifer 2.0 and website DC Leaks to distribute illegally obtained U.S. data to media outlets and the public. Russia obtained access to some elements of state and local electoral boards. Putin personally blamed the United States for international events unrelated to the election to damage our image internationally. Leading up to the election, the Kremlin affiliates, assuming that Clinton would win, swarmed social media and posts accusing the election of being rigged and the voting process of being manipulated. All efforts to publicly discredit our election system were cut off almost immediately after Trump won. They just turned off. Same with this election. Same with the 2020 election. The GRU infiltrated lobbying groups, political think tanks, and primary campaigns, obtained access to DNC computers, pushed anti-American and pro-Trump propaganda internationally, and yet Tulsi is telling you that it found nothing. And she can't even lie that well, because remember, going back to what Tulsi said, is even in her own quote, she doesn't say this publicly, but she's careful online. The quote here is that Russia and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. None of those attacks we're talking about were on the infrastructure. All of the attacks by Russia were persuasive, and they were meant to confuse and misinform people. So Tulsi's just, I don't know what Tulsi's doing, honestly. I don't know why she's lying about this. I have no fucking clue why the Republicans have decided that this would be like a good use of their time. And I took it as an opportunity to remind everybody that you've been lied to, and that Russia did influence our election, and they did work with the Trump campaign. And it's been proven time and time again, including with stories like Michael Flynn, who attempts to illegally align Russia and U.S. militaries. In late January of 2017, Michael Flynn pushed for the Pentagon to work closely with Russia's military. The Pentagon and Russia have a narrow communications channel used to keep American and Russian pilots safe from each other. So just like, here's our pilots, don't shoot us down. But Flynn wanted to expand that channel to coordinate the overseas military operations of both countries. Inside the Pentagon, there was a lot of fear that we'd move to outright cooperation with Russia through this channel. Whatever prospects it may have had died after Defense Secretary James Mattis made clear that he would not sign any required authorization to greenlight cooperation, according to two knowledgeable former senior defense officials. Although the plan was ill-defined, a senior defense official said Pentagon officials were aghast at what they understood as a move by Flynn to sidle up to Russia, part of a closeness that ultimately got Flynn fired, and one that fit a pattern of extending an olive branch to the Kremlin that U.S. intelligence had concluded interfered in the presidential election on Trump's behalf. Everyone knew where it was coming from, the defense official said, referring to Flynn. And Flynn then lied about this. And Flynn lied about him setting up private communication back channels. This is why Flynn was not only indicted and then pled guilty, and then Trump pardoned him. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that Flynn was indicted, he said I did it, and then he still got a pardon? Then this is just weird. Vitaly Churkin, who is a Russian ambassador, he was Russia's ambassador to the UN. He's known Trump since like 1986. He wound up being in the United States when he died. He was here lobbying the city to block he was in here lobbying for the Russian government. And when he died, for some reason the federal government came in and said we can't release the autopsy. Don't release the autopsy. There was supposed to be an autopsy done when somebody dies, and for some reason our federal government, led by Trump, came in and said block that autopsy. I don't know anything. I don't know if that is anything at all, but it was something I didn't know that I came across, and then I was very, very confused. Then more members of the Trump team are caught lying. This is where we're getting into the actual Mueller investigation. Reality Winner, which is did they change their name? I seem to remember this was somebody else's name and they changed their name. Like maybe I don't know if this is a trans person or not. I don't remember if it's the same person. Reality Winner, I can't remember. They were arrested for leaking a classified document on Russian interference in the 2016 election. Trump's Department of Justice charges her with espionage, and also there's like this public smear campaign. When Trump leaves office, Reality Winner is still in prison. However, they are out now. Winner, an Air Force veteran working for an intelligence contractor in Augusta, Georgia, printed out and mailed a classified NSA document to The Intercept in May 2017. The document reported that Russian hackers conducted cyber attacks against a United States voting software supplier and sent phishing emails to more than 100 election officials leading up to the November 2016 election, though the data used to develop this analysis was not included in in the report. I didn't remember this. But the infrastructure stuff that Tulsi's talking about, that Russia did not influence the election by conducting cyber attacks against the infrastructure, this would lead to say that they at least tried. I've never seen any evidence that they were successful, but even the thing Tulsi is saying about infrastructure appears to not be true. It appears that there was a cyber attack. Then you have a Trump campaign advisor who pleads guilty to lying about Russia contracts. Again, George Papadopoulos. Prosecutors charged Papadopoulos with lying to investigators about his conversations with a foreign professor who told him that Russians had thousands of emails containing dirt on Hillary. He told a group of fellow foreign policy advisors and Trump himself during a 2016 meeting in the spring that he could use his connections to broker a meeting between Trump and Putin. To that end, Papadopoulos allegedly emailed a Russian with connections to the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, forwarding information from the correspondences to a top campaign official not identified in the documents. On numerous occasions, he tried to negotiate a meeting between either Trump or campaign officials and members of Putin's office, as well as the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Papadopoulos lied to the investigators, wound up going to jail, serves 12 days in prison. So he lied about trying to work with Russia during the campaign, but they didn't do that, right? There was no collusion. Alex Jones then claims that during this time, this is crazy, I didn't know this either, claims that the members of the Pentagon under the Trump administration told him that QAnon is real, and the White House has told him and other commentators to push the conspiracies. He said, I've been told by 5 different Pentagon sources, high level, that the whole 8chan thing is real, and that they're basically, that's going to kill my voice, forecasting what they'd like to see happen and giving you information. That's definitely real. That's why Corsi's been, I'll let you know, because the enemy knows. The White House directly asked Corsi to be on the 8kun beat a month ago. That's directly from the White House. What does that say about QAnon? Whether it's, we're being told by the White House, please cover this. What does that say? The Corsi he's mentioning is Jerome Corsi, a conspiracy theorist and Council for National Policy member. He acted as a middleman in conversations between Roger Stone and Julian Assange. Now, I think this is coming from Roger Stone and not the White House. Roger Stone has been in all of this. Roger Stone is kind of like in his own world. I don't think this comes from the White House. But the funny part was at the end, in 2021, Alex Jones was quoted saying, "I knew what you were on day one, and I know what you are now, and I'm sick of it," saying that QAnon is nothing but lies. So he then denies it. But there's Alex Jones saying that the Pentagon apparently is telling him to push QAnon. Which reminded me of this. Remember when we talked about Russians? It was probably 5 or 6 slides ago. The Russians who were paying media members and politicians to push conspiracy theories or to push Russian propaganda. They never stopped doing that. They have millions of followers online, says PBS. They have been major players in right-wing political discourse since Trump was president, and they worked unknowingly for a company that was a front for a Russian influence operation. An indictment filed Wednesday alleges a media company linked to 6 conservative influencers, including well-known personalities Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson, was secretly funded by Russian state media employees to churn out English-language videos that were often consistent with the Kremlin's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions in order to weaken U.S. opposition. They're still doing it. And for whatever reason, they're choosing to do it with conservatives. Why do you think that is, conservatives? Why in the world do you think they keep targeting you? Why? Because when they lie, you don't care. When Donald Trump gets up there and he says, Russia, 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 it's a hoax. When Pam Bondi calls it a hoax, when Tulsi Gabbard says it's a hoax, they know you'll just buy it. Can somebody just point to which part of this was a hoax? I would conclude that Donald Trump, there's no evidence that Donald Trump knew the amount of cooperation that was going on. There's evidence that he knew some of it, which by itself should fucking be disqualifying. The fact that Donald Trump accepted a meeting with the Russians to get dirt on his political opponent, and then announced that he was going to reveal that dirt, and then in a debate went out in the debate and said, "Hey, help us out, Russia." All of that should have been disqualifying, but nothing to you folks is disqualifying. They can just lie to you. They can just tell you, "Oh, we didn't do it," and you're like, "Okay." We also now know that not only did they affect us through social media, but now we know the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency released a report showing the findings of the Russia infiltration. They concluded since at least March 2016, Russian government cyber actors, hereafter referred to as threat actors, targeted government entities in multiple U.S. critical infrastructure sectors, including the energy, nuclear, commercial facilities, water, aviation, and critical manufacturing sectors. The initial victims are peripheral organizations such as trusted third-party suppliers with less secure networks. Remember, they had already infiltrated the Treasury. They had members of the United States Treasury feeding them information. This is real. The cyber actors use these third-party networks to install their malware, which is exactly how those influencers were paid. It's exactly how they were paid, through third-party trusted entities. So that there is like some division between you and Russia. So either you can deny being paid by Russia, or you unwittingly can be paid by Russia, and they just want to amplify your message because you're a dipshit that says what they want you to say. Remember that the Mueller investigation also concluded, which we've covered before, 12 members of the Russian GRU were indicted for hacking and election interference. This is the announcement from Rod Rosenstein in 2018, Trump's Rod Rosenstein. Today, a grand jury in the District of Columbia returned an indictment presented by the special counsel's office. The indictment charges 12 Russian military officers by name for conspiring to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. 11 of the defendants are charged with conspiring to hack into computers, steal documents, and release those documents with the intent to interfere in the election. One of those defendants and a 12th Russian military officer are charged with conspiring to infiltrate computers of organizations involved in administering the elections, including state boards of elections, secretaries of states, and companies that supply software used to administer elections. This is the fucking Trump administration telling you Russia interfered, and we indicted 12 of them. This is the Trump administration. This isn't Joe Biden. This isn't Barack Obama. This is the Trump administration. This is Rod Rosenstein saying, yes, The Trump administration decided that Michael Flynn was guilty, that Papadopoulos was guilty, that Manafort was guilty. Trump just pardoned them. He just gave them us all because they did a lot of great work for Donald Trump. All of this has been concluded. I don't know what Tulsi's doing right now. In fact, there was an Intel director that Trump fired because he refused to manipulate the Russia findings. According to multiple officials who saw it, there was a document that discussed Russia's ongoing efforts to influence U.S. elections, the 2020 presidential contest, and 2024 as well. It was compiled by a working group consisting of about a dozen senior analysts, led by Christopher Bort, a veteran national intelligence officer with nearly 4 decades of experience, principally focused on Russia and Eurasia. Earlier in July, a draft of the 2019 NIE circulated around the intelligence community. And NIE is the most authoritative class of top secret document that judges the greatest threats to our national security. The document is written based on the most solid findings of the intelligence community. And in that first draft, it was included that Russia was again operating in support of Trump, as well as helping prop up Bernie Sanders, most likely to further the divide. But once the draft reached the White House, a staff member asked Coates to change the language of the NIE so that it would be less clear whether Russia supports Trump's re-election campaign. Coates refused to do it, and then Trump fired him. Coates refused to change the language that Russia was helping Trump, and so Trump fired him. Then Bill Barr goes in and drops a criminal case against Michael Flynn. Trump's own attorney general drops the criminal case against Michael Flynn for lying to the FBI about contacts with Russia. Flynn has already pled guilty to this. We're dropping a case that he's already pled guilty to. He's indicted, pleads guilty. Bill Barr, they said, according to the New York Times, the move was the latest example of Attorney General Bill Barr's efforts to chisel away at the results of the Russia investigation. Documents that Mr. Flynn's lawyers cited as evidence of prosecutorial misconduct were turned over as part of a review by an outside prosecutor whom Mr. Barr assigned to re-examine the case. And then they decided, there's nothing there. He already pled guilty to it, but there's nothing there. And then I just want to play one more thing from Tulsi, because she's totally not a puppet. This is Tulsi Gabbard in talking about Snowden.
People who are watching at home, you may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States, accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet.
I want to
warn the Americans
to be a puppet, and yet she puts out the most moronic attempt to cover for Donald Trump that I've ever seen. I saw somebody in here earlier that was like, Obama's going to go to jail. Once again, let's revisit this graphic now. Creation of the Russia hoax. I started the Russia hoax in 1984. The timeline I took you from today started with Russia openly claiming that they have been cultivating Donald Trump since 1984, that they have pushed him to run for office, that in 1988 they predicted that he would run for office and be president. Saw that we showed that they had paid his bills for decades. When U.S. banks wouldn't do anything for him, he went to Russian banks. When his apartments weren't selling, the Russians came in and bought them. And what Tulsi Gabbard wants you to believe is that in 2016, after Hillary Clinton lost, that quickly Obama and Clapper and Comey came together and came up with this solution to all of this, that they would invent a Russian hoax. And her claim is that even though their own intel said Russia was not involved, that they went forward on it anyways. And she uses the quote, Russia and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. Donald Trump's own Department of Justice has concluded that Russia interfered. Multiple members of his team have confirmed that. Both the Obama Department of Justice and FBI and CIA, Trump Department of Justice and CIA and FBI, and Biden's. Everybody is aligned on this. But Donald Trump is in a lot of shit right now because he's covering up the Epstein files, and we don't know why. But for some reason, he's covering all that up, and they wanted to distract you. And that's fine. Like, this is, if this was Benny Johnson who put this out, I wouldn't have covered it. This is the director of national intelligence. This is not a political pundit. This is the person who is in charge of national intelligence. And she is putting out the dumbest fucking possible excuse for going after Obama, Clapper, and Comey. This carries no weight. None whatsoever. Nothing that they have claimed that Comey, Clapper, and Obama did is illegal or wrong. They literally said that the IC begins outlining new assessment to claim election was hacked. It was. They know that. They know that for certain. U.S. officials, Putin personally involved in the U.S. election hack. We've proved it now. Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in election. We've proven that now. Secret CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump win the White House. We've proven that now. She's calling this deep state leaks. And she says that Obama officials used their media propaganda arm to spread fake news. All of those highlights are true. All of them. Every single one of those headlines is absolutely true. This will lead to nothing. But I'm just wondering what the fuck happened to Tulsi Gabbard. How did Tulsi go from like, let's not do regime change wars, like, to this? She's not in the room when any decisions are made. Trump leaves her out of the room when they talk about foreign policy. She's not allowed to do anything. She just every once in a while can show up and put out graphics like this. And you know, the reason I know that they're not serious about this is because James Comer is going to be the one that's over it. It's going to be Comer that does this. They're not going to put a serious Republican in charge of this. If it's not Comer, it's going to be like Marge, or maybe they'll put Virginia Fox in charge. Or it's not going to be anybody serious by the Republican Party. This will lead to nothing. But I do also want to say that I don't think it worked. I don't think anybody's talking about this. I don't think outside of MAGA, nobody's really talking about this. Except for me. And I talked about it because I wanted to prove, like, definitively once and for all, that this Russian hoax shit isn't a hoax. It absolutely fucking happened. Everybody saw this happen in real time. And I think we just forget. There was so much of it. It's easy to forget. Let me read some comments and we'll get out of here. Kristen said, don't be mad, trolls and bots. Jay's just giving you a break from telling you Trump's a P3DO to remind you he's also a traitor. Amy Lid said Tulsi needs new knee pads. Also, oh, Jen, you can shame me and whip me because I'm a very bad girl. Or just an excuse to send $5. Jen, I think your math is off. I want an itemized receipt. Oh, no. Oh, you guys did kill today. Thank you guys so much. That means a lot to me that I don't have to shout at a Republican for you to enjoy the work we're doing. Purple Kitty said, do it, lady. Tanya Takes a Pic said, thank you for taking time to share this information with us. Gerald said, how often... Oh, you did that one. That's shitty trash talk about how often my wife and I do our show. Let me check over here.
No, that was... Hold on. No, I reposted that because he wasn't making a shitty comment.
Oh, he wasn't? What was he saying?
He was just genuinely asking when we had to do our show.
Oh, my bad, Gerald. So I'm sorry. That just seems like a shitty... Yeah, my bad, Gerald.
That's why I said you need to apologize. That's why I sent that again.
Oh, I didn't read that on your note. I didn't read that from yours. I was reading it off of mine. Yeah. Okay. Gerald, my bad. I feel like an idiot right now. I hope you forgive me. Sorry about that. Chris said, great show today. Hans said, great job spelling all of this Russia collusion out, but sadly you lost MAGA at hello. Sarah said, Jen, would you present this knock-knock joke to RTP? Do you want to do it, Jen? I won't read it.
Sure. Let me get knock knock.
Who's there?
Europe.
Europe who?
Yeah.
Jamar said there are plenty of instances when men have promised women their dick was big, way to over deliver on having a big old dick today. Thank you. Kim said $5 train. Thanks for all your hard work. I think I did that one. I did that one from Hans. Natalie said amazing deep dive. Thanks for all the work. Thank you, Natalie. Don Jarrell said great breakdown. Amanda said $2 dollar train. Fuck ICE. Fuck Trump. I think I read that one. But always fuck ICE. But don't fuck ICE. And from Leslie, awesome show, Jay and Jen. All right, did I get them all? That was a lot of talking. I'm exhausted.
I think so. I mean, as far as I know, did you check Venmo or your Cash App and PayPal?
Tulsi's, yeah, I did. Tiger said Tulsi referred the Obama traitors to DOJ for immediate prosecution, not further investigation. That's not how this works. You can't. She can't tell the DOJ to prosecute somebody. Just so you know, it's a referral. They can do whatever they want with it, but they've got to now. They have to go through it and decide whether or not to investigate, which they won't do. Clapper admitted no evidence of Russian collusion on network news. You're falling apart. Great. All right. Obama put out a statement. I'll check that out tomorrow. Any last words from you, Jen?
No. Thanks everybody for falling to my guilt traps. I appreciate it. So.
All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. to 1 Pacific Standard Time, right here on TikTok and not TikTok today, YouTube, Twitch, and is the TikTok ban over tomorrow? You know,
I think it was over today at 1 o'clock. I think it's over now. I checked it before the show. I think it got over today during the show. So should be back tomorrow.
So we should be back on TikTok tomorrow. You can catch us there. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok for updates. And later this week, I should have an announcement on our next membership or our next member event. Those are just for paid members, either on TikTok, YouTube, or Twitch. So make sure that you have a paid membership if you want to be part of those events. And I hope to have an announcement soon on that. No date night with Admir tonight. My voice can't handle it. And going forward, we're going to do something different. I don't know if we can poll opposition very well, so we're going to have to do something different. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Stay cute and cool, and have a great summer.